Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Signed the Traitors. I am your host, Katie, and I am back with my co host, Javier, after a little bit of a mini break. Javier, how are you? Have you been?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk these two episodes. I will say one thing though, just to preface these two episodes. I am sick of Peter and Trishelle, so that
Oh,
might be an ongoing theme for me. But
me.
I'm just gonna preface that for everyone listening.
I have a feeling that's a popular opinion.
Yes, I'm glad. I've been seeing that online, and I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad that a lot of people are on the same wavelength as me. How are
Yes,
you doing, Katie?
I'm doing well. I am with you in agreement 1,000%. I cannot stand Peter and Trishelle, so I am excited to dig in and talk about it all. I think we already have some people in the chat that
Yep, I'm
agree.
seeing that. I'm like, yes,
So
thank you,
I
chat.
think yes, I think we're on the right wavelength here. But I'm good. I'm excited to be back talking with you. I feel like we haven't spoke about traders in so long. I think the last episode that we talked about was Dan's banishment, which feels
Yeah,
crazy.
which was like such a high episode for me, and then
I know.
episode 7 honestly might be my least favorite of this season. I felt
Mine
like
too.
they just slowed all the momentum, and as we get into it, we'll get into it. But yeah, I was very, seeing the contrast from oh my god 6 was amazing to then 7. I was like, yikes.
I felt exactly the same way. I feel like we started in a high on episode 7 and then we really ended with a kind of a big lull. So let's just get into
Mhm.
it.
Let's do
We left off with Peter getting in episode 6, getting the letter to be recruited. And in a kind of a shocking twist, I didn't really expect it. He said no. Were you expecting him to say no?
So I don't know if I was expecting him to say no, but for some reason I wasn't surprised that he didn't say
Yeah.
yes, just because just Peter's Peter seems very much holier than thou. Like he likes to be like the leader, and I think that the fact that he's in such a good position with the faithfuls and he has a little clique, I
Yeah.
feel like if he accepted it, he would be kind of giving a little bit of more power to the traders because he'd have to work with them instead of with the faithfuls. So in retrospect, I'm not that shocked that he said no, just because I think he, especially as you watch the rest of these episodes, he's really like power hungry at this point. So why switch allegiances at this point in the game? I think so. It makes sense for him to say no. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think at the time when we were chatting with Chanel, last time we spoke, I think we probably all expected him to say yes. Because I just feel like most of the people who are recruited do kind of end up saying yes. But thinking on it, I think it makes sense that Peter did say no because I do feel like he's just super self-righteous. And just, I don't know, like he just has that vibe where he's like, I have to do, I mean, he said it, I'm going to win this the right way. And it's
Right.
like, my guy, the name of the show is called The Traitors. It's not called The Faithfuls. So, like, let's pump our brakes just a little bit here. Like there's no right way to win this game. Winning is right. However
Exactly.
you get there, it's right.
I
So
agree.
not a fan of Peter. And I'm happy with the decision though. I don't think I could have stomached Peter as a traitor. And I think they would have actually probably handed him the win if he did accept. So I'm kind of happy that it, especially with where we ended up in episode 8, feels like Peter's starting to feel a little heat.
Yeah, I agree with you. At the time, I was kind of like, I wish he would have said yes, just because I like more. I usually root for the traders, and it's just
Yeah.
nice to see other traders. And I feel like it would have maybe helped Parv and Phaedra since I'm really rooting for them. I felt like if Peter would have joined, it would have given somehow a better chance for Parv and Phaedra to do well. But yeah, I'm glad that he didn't accept it because, like you said, through this episode and episode 8, he started finally to get some heat. And if he were a trader, I feel that he wouldn't have gotten that heat because Parv and Phaedra would not have started to say anything bad about him. So I'm
Yes.
I'm glad he said no.
Yes, me too. So we head into breakfast. Parvati is stressing a little bit, and Phaedra's like, "Yeah, this isn't great for you." So we head into breakfast, and Bergie and Phaedra are. I'm sorry, Bergie and is it Phaedra? Yes, are at breakfast together, and they're thinking about who's going to get murdered. And Bergie's like, "It's going to be someone from my crew," and Phaedra's like, "You guys are like a gang," and he's like, "Yeah, we are." And I'm just annoyed by every one of these people so far, except for John, because I feel like John isn't fully married to them yet. Like
Yeah.
he's part of it, he's part of the conversations, but he kind of does his own thing, which I like, which keeps me, kind of rooting for John a little bit. But these
Mhm.
people are just annoying.
Yeah, they are just. I'm just so sick of that click.
Ugh.
And if I were playing this game, even if I don't think any of them are traders, which I would I don't know. I just can't imagine. I think we've talked about this. I just can't imagine playing this game and seeing these 5 kind of running the game and me being okay with it. Even if I don't, so I would be suspicious of one of them being a trader. Why would someone like Peter have so much knowledge, and why would everyone be so support? You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I'm just really sick of this click, and I hope that we can slowly start chipping away at it. So
Yes. Even if like, even if you're a faithful and you're playing the game and you think all of them are faithfuls, eventually you're gonna want them out anyway because they're always gonna vote you out over one of the other ones.
Mhm.
Sandra kind of does talk about,
Yeah,
which is one of my favorite when this was my favorite part of this episode by
I
far.
agree. With
Um,
Sandra
yes,
strategizing, yes, that was the
incredible.
best.
But, like, she's right, like, it's a numbers game at this point, and they're always gonna keep each other safe over everybody that's not in their
Mhm.
crew, as she called them, the leftovers, which
The
we
la
already have an alliance named the Leftovers. I think we might need to, in a different game, but, I think, yeah, I agree, like, even if I'm a faithful and I think they're all faithfuls, they gotta go. Like,
Yep.
we can't keep them around. But anyway, Parv comes in the room and she's ready to battle Peter today. She's ready to go up against him. He says no to her recruitment.
Mhm.
Everybody walks in, and surprise, there's no murder. And they're like, "Oh, someone must have gotten recruited." And they're like, "What if someone said no?" And Alan pretty much just says, like, "You can figure this one out on your own." And Parvati's like, "Well, who got the letter?" She's going in a little hard for me at this
I
breakfast,
agree.
especially because she obviously has a lot of suspicion on her. I feel like she was doing a little too much.
Mhm.
But she's like, "Tell me who got the letter. Like, raise your hand if you got the letter." And Peter surprisingly does not say anything. And this I was actually very shocked by.
Yeah, I think actually, I hate to like say that, but I do think this was a good move from Peter not to say anything. Because we saw how it backfired, with I know I like in season one, Cody didn't necessarily say he was recruited, but he said something along those lines of like maybe someone was recruited and then Cody became a target in season one. So I
Mhm.
actually think it's smart of Peter not to tell anyone. And I mean, good props to him. He's annoying, but props to him for that move.
I don't disagree, but I do think him telling other people at episode 8, at the end of episode 8, I know we're kind of like jumping around a little bit because we have 2 weeks to talk about, but with Peter losing some trust from like the Kevins of the world, I do think this could kind of come back to bite him because after breakfast, Peter does come clean to his group of John, Kevin,
Mhm.
Trishelle, and Bergie and says that I got recruited, but trust me, you guys, trust me. I'm with you guys till the end. I said no, I said no. And at the end of episode 8, Kevin's like, I don't know if I can trust Peter. And I was kind of waiting for him to say something, but it hasn't come back yet. And I just feel like it's gonna eventually come back and bite Peter a little bit that he told just a small group and didn't tell everybody else.
I mean, I really hope it does, but knowing Kevin,
I know, it's true. We
unfortunately,
can't really put our faith in Kevin.
I can't exactly. I can't really expect Kevin to lead the anti-Peter movement if that
I
is what
know.
they're building for. But if that is what they're building for, then I am excited to watch Kevin try to strategize that move out.
I might have to get on the Kevin train just like I did
Exactly.
get on the Trevon train in Canada. Might just have to happen. Anything else about this breakfast that we didn't cover? This one was kind of like a lackluster breakfast a little bit. I think did we get a food comment from Phaedra in this episode? I don't think so.
No, I would have wrote it down too. I
Yeah,
always
I
go
wrote
ahead and
down her
count.
preserves and cream cheese, but I think that's in the next episode.
Yeah, that is. I wrote that down too.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I do want to say is that I feel like and when we were watching Big Brother Canada, we always talked about Corinne's looks. We were watching US1. I think Kate was the one who was killing it in the looks department.
Yes, yes.
And I think this season, I know I praise her a lot, but Phaedra has really been looking really stunning multiple
Yes.
times. And I want to give a shout out to Phaedra's looks. I don't know who's doing her makeup either. She's just Phaedra always looks
Yes, her
great. And
her makeup always looks incredible.
yeah, so I just want to shout out Phaedra for that. On top of being super entertaining, she always looks 10 out of 10. So props to Phaedra.
She really does. Honestly, we're getting a lot of pretty good looks this season. Kate again is giving
Yeah.
looks. And we have to give Alan his props,
Yes, I agree.
obviously. Alan
Alan has
shows
been
up
pulling
every
out some
week.
good ones.
Yeah. I know, I'm turning around on Alan. He's still
Same.
not my favorite, but I am enjoying him this season, I will have to say. So,
Same.
you know. Especially when he says today, if a reality star falls in the forest and there's no one here to hear it, does it make a sound? And then Sandra's just like, oh no, we're running through the woods. I just feel like the way Sandra is screaming in every episode, she kills me for some reason. I don't know why. She just really is making me laugh.
I can understand that. Trust me, I get it.
Yes. Love Sandra. Okay, well, before the mission, this is when Peter brings his crew into the bar. He closes the door and then he spills the beans. Phaedra comes in and they ask her to leave the room and she's like, "What?" And she goes into, I guess it's the billiards room,
Mhm.
and she's like, "Peter just kicked me out and told me to leave." And MJ's like, "Oh, hell no." And she goes into the room and this like became, I don't know, became like a little bit of a meme.
Yes, we gave him a meme, and it's so good.
I love, it's perfect because she looks like a little kid the way she's just like holding her pants
Holding her
up, which is so weird. I don't know, I loved it.
and the
But
way
they
she
kicked her
backs
out
off
too. Yeah,
slowly.
she's like backs up and she's like, "Oh, I don't wanna get left out." It was just this was like pure entertainment from MJ. I have to give her a round of applause.
I agree. This was like a good moment for MJ because I feel like she's really when the show started, I felt like she was going to be a bit more vocal, and then I really feel like
Mhm.
she's fallen to the background. So this moment might not make her a good player, but it was definitely entertaining to watch. So shout out to MJ
Hilarious.
for that.
I know. Every time I see it anywhere on social media, I
Yes,
it
it's so
cracks me up.
good.
It's so funny. What do you think about this from Peter and his crew?
Again, like I just don't see how this is not going to come back to bite them. Isolating so many people in the house. I just feel like they could play this differently. They could tell just a little bit to these people to make them not suspicious of
Right.
them. So at the end of the day, even if Peter and his little crew somehow end up making it to the end and winning, I think they could have had an easier road there if they would have just been a little bit kinder to the other players in the house. And honestly, they would also have had a better, I think, viewpoint from us, the viewers, as well. If they just would
Yeah.
have played that a little bit smarter, because I feel like this can easily backfire on them. And I kind of hope it does the way they've been treating everyone else in the house.
I hope so too. And I feel like it's just bizarre to just close doors and kick people out. Like you need those people to vote with you at the end of the day. And there's no
Mhm.
reason to not include MJ on the conversation that you guys are having because it just like give her a little bit and just say like because she even says like I don't want to be left out of anything and they were like you won't be, I promise. And it's like you guys don't dictate what's going on in the house. You guys aren't the ones that are telling everybody who to vote for and why. Maybe you think you are, but you have to bring these other people in with you, especially because you don't have the majority right now. So
Exactly.
you're banding everybody else together to go against you, whether you're a faithful or a traitor. So I just think it's such bad gameplay. And if
Mhm.
I'm in that game and I'm a faithful, I don't want to share any money with any of them because of the way that they played. Like they're going to think that also I wouldn't want to stand next to any of them in the event that they vote me out at the end because obviously they're in a crew with each other.
Mhm.
Like I just wouldn't trust them. So I think this is just terrible gameplay from them.
Mhm. Yeah, you bring a good point. If everyone's at the final fire and it's like MJ plus them five, even if they
Yeah.
don't think MJ's a traitor, they're gonna be like,
Why
"Well,
not
MJ
vote her
didn't really
out?
help me in this game. She wasn't part of our crew. Let's just vote her out so we don't have to split the money with her." So yeah, that's
Exactly.
another good point.
So MJ, she hightails it back. She runs down the
Yeah.
hallway in her heels and her jeans, and she's like, "They asked me to leave," and she tells everyone. And Sandra, this gets Sandra activated, and she's like, "All right."
Mhm.
And then she goes to the table, and she's like, "Okay, here's what we could do. This is a numbers game." And she puts out all of the billiard balls on the table, and she's like, "Okay, this is Peter's crew, the Peter Pals, as
Peter Pals.
Phaedra has named them, and this is us. Here are their numbers. Here are ours. We." And then she just everyone she's holding court and everyone's like looking at her like wow, this is like Kate even says like this is the best thing I've ever seen because she just masters okay, here's what we need to do tonight. We need to make sure we vote one of them out because and she's moving the balls to signify the
Mhm.
numbers. It was amazing and this is why I love Sandra. She's just she is just an icon. She's the queen. This is why she won Survivor twice. I just feel like she is such a smart player, and I actually could
Mhm.
see Sandra getting to the end and possibly taking home a win.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I love this moment from Sandra, and I would have been, if I were in that game, I also would have just been like, just Sandra, like, yes, Sandra, keep telling me, tell me, tell me. That would be for a fan of like reality TV. If I were there, I would just be like, yes, Sandra, I want to
Yes.
work with you. Let's do this. Like, it would just be such the same way that Kate was super fascinated. I would have been like, this is the best thing ever. This is exactly why I'm playing these games. This is why I watch these reality competition shows to see this kind of gameplay
Yes.
and to see it being brought into this game is just even though Sandra is technically wrong about, I do think that in the long run, Sandra would be the type of person who would pick out the Parvs and pick out maybe Phaedra as well. So I,
Yeah.
I just really love seeing this from Sandra. It was great TV.
Yeah, I would have been same thing. I would have been totally in awe, just like watching the queen at work. And even
Mhm.
like Parv was just standing next to her watching. And like Parvati obviously has also played Survivor 4 times, I think, and has
Mhm.
won. And it's just like even she, I feel like, was like standing back and letting Sandra do her work and not getting in the way. It was beautiful. And I think Sandra actually did post on Instagram, I think I saw
Mhm.
someone I guess people are saying, like, "You're working with the traitors, so you're wrong, like, you're trying to get out faithfuls," but she's like, "You don't think we know that there are traitors in our group? Like, we need the numbers. It's a numbers game. We can
Mhm.
figure that out a little later," which I kind of I like that a little bit because it's like the traitors aren't gonna take out Sandra, so why not get a couple of people off the list first and then take the traitors out? It's not the worst strategy in the world.
Yeah, I saw that post as well. Yeah, she posted on Instagram saying that,
Mhm.
there are some inklings that she was saying I would have some inklings that someone in our group might be a traitor. So, and it's smart, we were talking about it earlier. They will keep picking off the leftover sides, as they call themselves, if they don't get them out first. And I was sad, spoiler, to not see that like energy in episode 8.
Yep.
But it was a good idea in episode 7, so that got me excited.
I was sad at the end of this episode because CT was in that room, and I think CT made a pretty bad decision at the end of this episode, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
Mhm.
So we head to the mission, and it's pretty much set up now that it's the leftovers versus the Peter pals, as we're
Mhm.
going to call them. And Sandra kind of leaves it off and says, "Is Peter is the head traitor?" Which obviously we know that he's not. Let's take him out, and everybody agrees it's Peter. Peter tonight, he's going, which I love. Parv seems to have a little bit of safety. It seems like everybody is going for Peter, which makes me happy because he's so annoying.
Mhm.
But we have a little bit of a twist at the end of this episode that we'll get to. But first, we have a mission to talk about. So we get to the woods of Derek McDormand, which for some we went to these woods in the UK too, and the way that Claudia said it, and the way that Alan said it, Derek McDormand stood out to me so much, and I don't know why. I just feel like it sounded so. I don't know if it's funny or just weird. And obviously, it didn't stick out to a lot of the players because they had to guess if it was Darren McDormand or Dormant McDan, whatever, and they didn't get it. But in this mission, the players have to pair off into teams of 2, and they just carry different denominations of money through the woods. And then they have to the paths split into 2 in some different areas in the road forks, and they have to decide which answer on this like little questionnaire thing is correct to tell them which way to go. And if they get it wrong, that one of them falls into a trap, and if they don't get it wrong, they can continue on. That's pretty much the TLDR of this mission.
Mhm.
Missions like this, I think, are like kind of fun because it has something to do with the game. Like they're answering trivia questions, but at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to just like keep it moving. Let's get to the round table.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, I thought it was fun, interesting to see Peter and Trishelle come up as a duo. And
Yep.
before this challenge, I just want to say that there was a moment where Trishelle goes, "Oh, me and Peter are the best duo in this
Oh
house."
yeah.
I want to say that was one of the major moments when I was like, I am sick of these two. Like, I cannot
Oh my god.
stand Trishelle thinking that she's just this like amazing. It just gives me the ick. Just this duo gives me the ick. So to see them flop in the challenge, like when Peter like falls straight face plants into the puddle. When I tell you that was the most exciting part of the challenge,
Me too.
I was
That was the best part.
like,
That was the best part.
so,
Yeah, so our groups are CT and Phaedra, which I love, John and Parv, MJ and Kate, Sandra and Kevin, Bergie and Sheree, and then of course Rochelle and Peter. And they're so high on their own supply. They're like, we're gonna get the shield and we're gonna be amazing. We're gonna do this in the best time. We're the best team here. And they're the first ones that fucking flop. And I loved every second of it. Every second of it.
yes, amazing. Karmic justice right there.
Derek McDormand's karma got them. So they take they fall into the trap of money leaves first. So does Bergie. Everybody else I think gets it right. And then there's another question about the symbol in the middle of the table, if it's a sun or a moon. CT is out here. They choose the sun. It is the moon. MJ is out. They get trapped in a net. Peter falls into like a muddy, leafy tar
Mhm.
pit or something. It looks gross. So Trishelle keeps moving. MJ and CT get trapped in a net. Sheree gets trapped in the net, which I'm like, I guess they're all doing this separately because they must have to like take them out and reset the
Yeah, that
traps.
part I didn't understand. Yeah.
That must have taken a really long time, this
Mhm.
whole thing. And they don't run into each other on the path either, from what we can see. So like they
Yeah.
definitely must have done this separately. So Sheree and Bergie are out immediately, the first 2 questions. Trishelle does get it right. So she moves on. But then they have to guess which the Latin phrase is in the kitchen. And Trishelle gets out on this question, Kate gets out on this question, and Phaedra gets out on this question. So
Mhm.
we're left only with Sandra and Kevin and Parv and John, which is interesting. But they get all the questions right. And they're the only 2 teams that make it to the end. And Sandra and Kevin get the shield.
Woo, excited for Sandra. Not that I think she's at risk for getting murdered, but I'd rather Sandra and Kevin have it than like Peter, Trishelle, Bergie.
Me too. Me too. I did not want Bergie, I mean, John, I would have been okay with him
Yeah,
having a
same.
shield. But I was just excited for Sandra. She's like, I've never gotten a shield. I want the
Yeah.
shield. So that was exciting for them.
Yeah, I also want to two other things. First of all, Kate had a great line when she got like scooped up by
Oh,
the,
yes.
the trap. She goes, "I feel like I'm back in the womb," and that really cracked me up when she
Yes.
said that. That was a good one. The other thing I thought of was this would have been a great challenge for the Big Brother players, and we're out of them because in Big Brother they're always like analyzing everything in the
Yes.
house. So that was another thing that I thought of during this episode. Like the one challenge that the Big Brother players would have been good at, they're all gone.
Mhm. I know, that is a little disappointing, and then also in episode 8, when not to jump too far ahead, we got Dr. Will, and we didn't have any Big Brother players for him either, which I'm like,
Yeah.
"Damn, these 2 would have been good for Big Brother."
Mhm.
There is also a funny moment before the challenge with Alan and Sandra again, where he says, "Are you prepared to meet your leafy doom?" And she's just like, "No!" And I don't know, she just really kills me. She's killing me. Um
Wait, sorry. Another thing that was funny
Yeah.
was at the end of the challenge, Sandra was being super dramatic. She said something along the lines like, "This is everything to me. I won this shield." I'm like, girl, didn't you win $2 million on Survivor? But
Dude,
winning this stupid shield is everything to you. I was like, power to you, Sandra, but let's be serious here.
I know. She's really wild. She's really wild, but I love her. And
But
I
I'm
love that
enjoying every
she's like
moment of
a
it.
challenge beast, kind of, sort
Yeah.
of, she doesn't want to be running through the woods or anything, but she's
Mhm.
doing really well. And I just feel like in Survivor, she was not that. She's like, I'll sit on this bench or I'm
Yeah.
gonna pull my flag, I'm out of here. So I don't know. I'm loving this Sandra growth that we're seeing.
Yes. That's true. I agree
Um,
with that.
yes. Well, let's go, Sandra. And whatever. Okay, Kevin. I guess we're gonna have you for another episode. Because at this point, we don't know what's about to come.
Mhm.
So we're heading back to the house, and Sandra says in the car, they just have to make sure that they survive the banishment and the murder so that they all remain safe. Um, CT at the house goes into the armory, and this is the first time I'm seeing them actually in the armory. I don't know if he like just discovered it, but he puts on the hat, like the helmet and the shield.
Yeah.
And he's coming out, which was a funny moment. He's just like so unserious, CT.
He is he is so unserious.
Do you feel like CT's like playing, or do you feel like he's just kind of chilling?
Okay, see, I was gonna bring this up when we talked about episode 8, but yeah, like I don't know if I would say CT's playing a good game as more so.
Yeah.
I just feel like CT is just well liked, which I guess that's a good game. But in terms of like, I don't
Right.
really see CT doing any of the strategizing, so it's hard for me to say that he's like a pro at Traitors, you know?
Right. I agree. I think, I don't really know what his game plan is. I think he's playing a
Exactly.
really good social game, which I
Mhm,
guess is the most important thing for the traders. I mean, for the, for anybody to play in the traders is a social game.
mhm,
Ultimately, that is what it is. But it just feels like he could be doing a little more than
mhm.
what he's doing. Like he's not really giving me too much, but
Yeah.
I always love CT. So can't get
I
too
will say
mad.
he's doing we always talk about the goal in like Big Brother or like in Survivor. I feel like the conversation is always you want to play like middle. And I feel like CT is doing that well. He
Yes.
works well with the Sandra crew, with all those ladies. And then he's doing, in episode 8, we see him kind of pivot and start to work a little bit more with Trishelle and Peter Pals. So if we were
Yep.
to talk about CT's game in that sense, I do think CT's playing a good game. But I don't see the other thing to me that makes a great player is someone who has agency. And I don't feel like CT has any agency. He's kind of just like vibing out, which is good in
Yeah.
one sense, but it's hard for me to rate that as an amazing game, if that makes sense.
Yes, I totally agree with you, and I think this is kind of what CT's been doing in the most recent seasons of the challenge that he's done really well
Yes.
in, is play the middle and, like, not really get involved. Even though
Mhm.
he's obviously a threat and he wins very often, he's done a really good job of just kind of making himself a non-threat and being in the middle of everybody, which
Mhm.
it seems like this is the way he's also approaching this game.
Yep.
It's working so far, like, his name was on people's, radar earlier, but it's not now, so I could
Mhm.
definitely see CT getting to the end of the game,
I agree.
but I agree, I don't think he has a lot of agency or influence at
Mhm.
this point yet. Maybe he does, who knows? I don't know, if he says
Hmm.
something, I'm sure if he takes a stand on something, I'm sure people will listen, but it just
Maybe,
doesn't
yeah, they
seem like
will.
he's doing that. Um, so Peter, in the meantime, is on a little bit of a mission. Uh, all the girls are talking. CT's like, "Oh, there's a queen's court in the hallway." And he tells it to Peter, and Peter's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go talk to." He talks to CT, he pulls him into the armory, and he's like, "Do you trust me?" And CT's like, "Listen, I'm open to everybody." But then he's like, "Your name's on the block tonight for banishment." And Peter's like, "Whoa, this is news to me. Like, this is the first time I've heard this." And I'm like, "CT, what are you doing? What are
Yeah,
you doing?"
you don't need to say that.
you don't need to say anything. Just say nothing.
Yeah.
So he's like, you got to get in with the girls, whatever. So he goes out and he pulls Phaedra and Parvati into the armory. And he's like, so do you guys have a consensus or are you all separate? And Phaedra's like, I don't like this. I don't want to be part of this conversation, whatever. And Parv is just like, I just feel like Parv is being Parv, And she's like, well, what do you think, Peter? Like, do you want to
Mhm.
should we work together? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, maybe we could all work together. And Phaedra's like, I'm out of here. I don't want to play these games like this. Like, I'm not doing this. And he's like,
Mhm.
no, 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 don't leave. But she says to us in a confessional, like, Peter loves his traps and I'm not falling into one of his traps. And I thought that was actually super smart of Phaedra to realize, like, Peter's not to be trusted no matter what. Like, don't even mess
Mhm.
with him because who knows? He did lay a trap for Dan and Parv. They fell right into it. And she's
Yep.
like, I'm out. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Phaedra played that really smart. I probably would have done the same as Phaedra, especially since Phaedra feels so safe at this point in the game. Up until episode 7, Phaedra has been in a pretty solid position. She had that little spat with Dan, but up until this point, it doesn't seem to really have gained any traction. So I think in Phaedra's mind, she's thinking, let me just continue to stay out of any drama. The potential of Peter, because Peter, like she says, Peter's the type who could have been in the round table and said, oh, I pitched this to Parvin Phaedra and she was so down. And then that could be, so I do think it was a
Yeah.
great move from Phaedra to, step back from that position, from that situation.
Yeah, very smart from Phaedra. As they're all talking, Alan is on the stairs and he's like, players, like, get your coats and boots. We're going to the woods. And everyone's like, what's going on? And I'm also like, what's
Yeah.
going on? What did you think was happening here?
I thought they were gonna do for a rapid banishment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to, let's sit down at the table and talk. It's like, all right, guys, whatever vibes you're feeling at this point, we're gonna start the voting. That's what I thought it was gonna be, but we saw. What did you think at the time?
I didn't really know what to think. I mean, we saw the safety chain in Canada, but the UK actually didn't have this twist this season.
Oh, okay.
So this
Something
is just,
different.
yeah, we got a little something different. And so I didn't really know what to expect, but once we saw everybody standing in a circle, I was like, this feels like something's up here. I kind of wish instead of only having 5 people up for banishment, that whoever didn't get the safety at the end went home. Like, I still feel like we lost a lot of momentum here because there was no
Mhm.
banishment, and everybody was working together so well at the beginning of this episode to send Peter home that I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get some drama at the end of this episode. It's gonna either be Parv or Peter," and it actually ended up just being no one,
Yeah.
which is
No,
kind of
that's true.
disappointing.
I didn't even think about that, but that probably would have been the way to save this twist. Because at the end of the twist, I felt very much like boohoo, like this is kind of lame. But I feel
Yeah.
like that would have made it a bit more interesting if whoever didn't get the torch lit that would go home.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, everybody goes into the woods. We get a new song on the way to the woods, which was exciting. And Alan pretty much just tells us, anybody who doesn't get their torch lit will be up and eligible for murder tonight. And essentially, we have a safety chain, which has been a very popular twist in reality shows lately.
Mhm.
Feels like it came from a few online games that some of us may be familiar with, that got picked up by some producers, which I'm fine with. I think it's a good one to watch play out on TV. But anyone who gets chosen will be safe, and it's essentially like they're getting a shield. And Kevin and Sandra, because they got the shield at the mission, have to unanimously, well, just not unanimous. I mean, there's 2 of them, so they have to decide together and come to a
Mhm.
consensus of who will start the chain. Um, they chose Sheree,
Mhm.
which was very surprising to me. What did you think about this first choice?
I agree. I was fully confused.
Yes, me too.
Uh, I just, Sheree seems like a sweet lady.
Yes.
But what is Sheree giving for this game? Why do I want to keep her around? How does it help Kevin or Sandra? That didn't make sense to me. But maybe it was the safest pick because she has no relation to them, to either of them. Because otherwise, it would have been like Kevin fighting for one of Peter pals and then Sandra
Right.
fighting. So maybe that's why they did it. But I didn't really get it. What about you?
I feel exactly the same way as you. I was like, Sheree is the first pick? Like, are they I guess she is very obviously a faithful. Like, no one is thinking Sheree is a traitor,
True.
obviously. So I guess that's safe. But I was expecting to see Kevin definitely go toe to toe with Sandra here because
Mhm.
Kevin has been a dick in the past at roundtables, especially
Mhm.
when speaking to women in some cases. So I was fully expecting him to try and like alpha Sandra, and we didn't get any of that. It was just like, okay, yeah, sure. No, I'm good with that. Okay, yeah, let's go with Phaedra. And I was like, Sheree. And I was like, what? Sheree? which I'm happy. I love Sheree, but she's not really giving us anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was interesting. Sheree chooses Phaedra, which I think we probably knew was gonna
Mhm.
happen, but Phaedra gets so emotional, and this, like, really touched me. I don't know, 'cause
Yes, me
I love
too.
these
Sweet
women. I've been
moment.
with them for a decade or more at this point. Like, I love them. They're like my family, and, like, you for who doesn't watch Housewives, that you felt it too. I just love this
Yeah.
from them. I just felt like, they really do know each other, obviously, as Phaedra said, that they have a 20-year history together. They've been through a lot together, and this is just a full circle moment, and this just made me, like, really like, "Oh, Phaedra."
Yeah, I thought that it was a good, like, little vulnerable moment for Phaedra.
Yeah.
So I
Which we
really
really
like
don't get a lot from her. She is always on. So this was nice.
agreed.
Yeah, little Phaedra. Kate and CT are consoling her. And then of course she gives her torch to her man, her castle daddy, CT. Which I was a little bit surprised by. I thought maybe she would give it to MJ and keep it with the Bravo girls, but this is just another example of, like, when Trishelle and everyone are like, "She had all these Bravo girls are gonna stick together." I'm like, "Maybe, but not really." Like, they haven't really been.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get why she saved CT in the sense that it does seem like they have a good bond in this game. But I
Yeah.
think strategically it would have been smart to save one of the Bravo girls. Listen, if at this point, if you think I'm working together, the way that I say it is, okay, bet we're
Yeah.
gonna work together then. You're already
Right.
pushing me together, even though we're not. So if it's gonna help me in this game, and I think we would have seen then maybe someone like Peter could have been up for banishment if she wouldn't have
Yes.
saved, because MJ would have definitely probably saved
Kate,
Kate.
probably.
So it just I get it, but I also don't love it.
Yeah, I thought it was not the best decision from Phaedra. MJ was upset that Sandra didn't save her, actually, because she was like, "We're really close,"
Yeah,
so she was already upset. Parv was upset that Phaedra didn't save her, which I'm like, "Ma'am, how's she
she
gonna
come
do
on.
that?
Yeah,
Come on." There's 2 other Bravo women here and her castle daddy, CT. She's very clearly not gonna save you when everybody's the most suspicious of you in the house. Like, this
yeah.
doesn't make sense. You guys
I
also don't really socialize together in the house from what we see, so it would just have
mhm.
made literally no sense.
Yeah, it would have looked waste. It would have looked so sus to be like, why is she saving Parv?
Yes, which I'm very happy she didn't do.
And
Um,
Parv doesn't even need saving. Parv is not gonna
I
die.
know, you're not gonna
So
die.
relax, Parv.
Right, yeah, that was a little weird. She's like, "Maybe I need to watch Favor now." I'm like, "Okay, relax." This whole time, by the way, Trishelle is begging and, like, crying for her life to every single person, and I'm like, "Please shut up.
Sick of this woman. I'm
Up."
sick of. She says I've been fighting for my life, girl. What? When has your name been on the chopping block? I
Literally
have not heard
never.
anyone question Trishelle, and if anyone, Trishelle's another one of those people who like everyone thinks is a faithful. So why is
Right.
she so? She's so.
I know. She
And she's
is
had
very
killed so many
obnoxious.
times. It's like,
I
girl.
know. Yeah, please relax. She is, yeah, very obnoxious. So she's begging for CT to save her, and CT gives us a little bit of a curveball here and saves our guy John and does not save Trishelle, which I think is a terrible move from CT, and I'm very upset with him because of the conversation that Sandra very clearly laid out in the beginning of the episode with the billiard balls. We need to make sure that our numbers are preserved moving forward, and we need to make sure that someone from that side is eligible for murder. Yes, there are 5 people that are going to be up for murder, so it will be okay at the end of the day. But, like, the plan was always
Mhm.
Peter, so why give it to someone who very likely will save Peter?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't think it was the smartest move from CT. Um, like he said that he did it because he thinks John is super like faithful,
Yeah,
but there's other people who you could think are super faithful, I feel, than John. Like MJ seems pretty faithful to
MJ.
me.
Yeah,
I would give it to
exactly.
MJ. So and like you said, it would have helped him stay on the good graces of the whole Sandra side. But I guess maybe this was CT again trying to play the middle and like picking
Mhm.
John, who is so obviously faithful, even though he is with Peter, like you mentioned earlier. John does seem to be a bit more, malleable in the game
Yeah.
than a lot of these other people. So I guess maybe it is a good move for CT?
For
Question mark.
CT, probably, but for everybody else, I felt like it
Yeah.
was just not great. I was like, "Oh, CT, no, not
Yeah, I
John."
wasn't happy about it. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't happy about it.
No, I was definitely not happy about it. Neither is Trishelle, because she has, like, a meltdown about
Yeah.
this. She's like, "We've been friends, and I thought we were turning over a new leaf, and he's like my brother." Um, but we'll get to that. That continues on for pretty much the rest of the episode, which is really obnoxious.
Mhm.
But John saves Peter. Peter pleads for his life, and John saves him, so Peter is safe, and Parv is very upset. They wanna murder Peter tonight. Do you
Mhm.
think murdering Peter while Peter has all this heat on him and the potential like, if there was a round table, he probably would have gone home, I would think, given the amount of heat
Mhm.
that was on him. Do you feel like murdering Peter for Parvati and Phaedra would have been the right decision that night? Because I actually don't.
I'm like kind of split because I do feel that Peter is, the head of the snake. And I feel like if you leave someone like Peter in this game for too long, he's going to continue to, squeak on by. So part of me thinks that I would have also taken out Peter just to end this saga with Peter, and hopefully
Yeah.
the other side scrambles and someone else becomes, kind of like maybe then someone like Sandra could have even more sway when when Peter's not in everyone's ear, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
just think because of Peter's sway,
Mhm.
even though there is a lot of heat on him to be banished, I just think I would have also taken out Peter, honestly. If not, who?
Yeah, I guess it's true. I mean, I think yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think I was talking myself into it being a bad idea, but now
Mhm.
I can I actually agree with you. This is why I'm glad we're discussing it because
Exactly.
I do think you're right, is that Peter does have a lot of sway and he's taking a lot of attention from other people who
Mhm.
it could be, which is probably good. But that's the thing is like I think that's probably good to leave in the game because he has so much attention on him that it's taking
Mhm.
attention away from other people. And I think for Parv, when she has a very clear feud with Peter, that would be the obvious move for her to murder Peter, so I think it could throw people off the scent of her if she
Mhm.
murdered, like, a Bergie or a Trishelle or someone close to Peter and dwindled his numbers down a little bit. Because everybody else is getting so annoyed by Peter, I just don't think he's gonna get more support. I think it's, like, the crew he has and that's it. So why not, like, take all of them out and then hopefully that puts more suspicion on Peter. But
Mhm.
then, like, Peter also, if he's a traitor, wouldn't be taking his own people out. So I don't know. I think either way, it could have probably gone either way, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I see both sides of the coin, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it doesn't really matter because he's safe,
Yeah.
thanks to John. And he's still with us, unfortunately. He's very as annoying as ever in
Yes.
episode 8. But, so up for banishment then tonight we have Parvati, we have Trishelle, we have Bergie, Kate, and MJ. Those are the 5 that do not
Mhm.
get saved, and they are up for murder, and everybody else is safe.
Mhm.
Um, Sandra actually says, "Peter, I could feel his anxiety and his nerves on him and, like, the desperation to stay safe. Maybe he really is a faithful." And I'm like, "Sandra, no.
Yes, I
Don't it
agree.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He needs to go anyway. He needs to go anyway."
I agree. I wrote that in my notes too. I'm like, please, Sandra, just let's finish the mission. And we got a good moment of Kate in episode
Yes.
8, and I agree with that. That's honestly how I would play the traitors. Like, we have a mission, and let's just finish this one mission, and then we can focus on another mission. And I wish
Yes.
Sandra would have stuck with the "let's get Peter out" mission.
Me too, because, like, just focus in that area. The rest of them will, like, scurry away, and you can pull
Exactly.
some of them in, and you can get numbers, and they'll talk to you, but instead, they're all going to Peter, and they're trusting in Peter, and he's, like, their leader. He's gotta
Mhm.
go. Um, so we're on the way back, and we get to the house, back to the castle. Trishelle is hurt, she's humiliated. They're all sitting at the bar, and she comes in, and he's like, "Do you hate me?" And she's like, "I don't even think you care either way." And I'm like, "You're honestly so dramatic." Like,
It's so dramatic.
it's really not that serious. I think he even said to her when he lit John's torch, like, "This isn't a death sentence," or something.
Yeah.
Um, and part of me just wishes that Phaedra and Parv took this opportunity just to murder Trishelle because, like, she's being so dramatic. I'm like, "Then take her out. This is, like, the perfect opportunity," but, um, they get into it a little bit, in the other room. Uh, MJ is also hurt and upset that she wasn't chosen. She's like, "I'm not okay with not getting safety. Like, you guys don't know what it feels like to stand there." She's disappointed and angry that she had to sit and
Mhm.
watch everyone else get safe, and she was no one else's first choice.
Like, okay, MJ. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like you and 5 other people, MJ. It's not
Yeah,
only
like,
you.
look at Kate. Kate's not complaining.
She
Kate's
didn't
like,
say a
whatever,
word. Yeah, she didn't say anything.
anything. She's like, whatever. I'm here vibing still.
Yeah, whatever, I'm getting a check, paycheck, appearance fee.
Yeah.
Um, Yes. So the Bravo girls minus Kate, I don't think Kate's part of this conversation, but Sheree, Phaedra, and MJ are all talking, and Trishelle comes in and they're like, well, did you talk to CT? Did you like approach him and say, and she's like, well, I don't think I should have to do that. And then CT comes in and he's like, oh, I'll let you guys talk. And they're like, no, 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 no. You have to come in. You have to like, you guys have to have a conversation. So they all leave. They kind of facilitate this heart to heart, I guess, moment
Mhm.
between I'm sorry, between Trishelle and CT. And she's like, "Well, what do you think? I'm like not smart or something? Like, you think John's smarter than me?" And he's like, "Well, I do kind of think John's line of work is like a good asset to this game." And so he kind of was like, "Yeah, I kind of do think John is like better than you to have around," which
Yeah.
I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think CT unintentionally was being quite shady this whole
Mhm. I think
interaction.
so too. I think so too.
Um, but listen, I'm gonna say one thing and about CT, and CT's great most of the time. But I always remember, I think like 2 or 3 seasons ago on the challenge, he was really playing on one of my favorites,
Big
facing
T.
Big T's face. And I feel like that's literally what he was doing to Trishelle again. He gaslit the hell out of Big T, and I was not happy because Big T's like one of my favorite from like the newer challenge players. And I
Yep.
feel like that's kind of what he's doing for to Trishelle a little bit. But like I don't really like Trishelle, so I don't mind it as much. But again, all of this is to say is that this is not outside of CT's playbook.
It is not. And I actually thought the same thing about Big T and how CT is kind of not to be trusted at the end
Yeah.
of the day when it comes to like partners and who he's working with
Mhm.
because he's going to look out for number one. He did it to Big T, and that was it. I was sick over that. And I'm a
I was
CT
sick, Katie.
fan, but I turned on him in that moment. So,
Yeah, it was very
CT
hard.
has some flaws, and that is definitely one of them. He will throw people under the bus without a second thought.
Mhm,
Yeah, Trishelle is like, "I thought you were like my brother and we were turning over a new leaf." And he says to us in the confessional, that he wouldn't put someone in a position to have to choose between a game and friendship, which I get that, and I'm trying to put myself in Trishelle's position, which obviously is hard to do because 'cause we've obviously never played this game. I
mhm,
think I would have been pissed for sure, but I don't think I would have acted the way Trishelle acted. I think I would have just been like, "Well, he's gotta go. He's
mhm,
obviously shady. He's a traitor. Something up his probably him and John that are traitors together. Why would he save John over me?" And I think it
mhm.
would make me more suspicious of CT. I don't think I would be, like, boohooing all over the house about it, about my friend that stabbed me in the back.
Yeah, same, I agree. I would use this as kinda like, "Okay, now I know the player you are, now I know how you think of me in this game. I'm not your number 2, 3, you know what I'm saying? Like, you
Yep.
think I'm disposable, basically, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep this in the back of my head."
Yeah.
But I
So
would
now
also
you're
be hurt.
disposable to me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I would be pissed for sure. I think I would be hurt, but I would just, like, turn my hurt into
Yeah,
rage.
exactly.
Yeah.
Turn the hurt into, at the end of the day, I'm here to win
Yeah.
this game, you know?
Exactly, and guess what? You're not now. If you're at the end with me, I'm voting your ass out, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna say,
exactly.
"Remember when you didn't save me? Well, now I'm voting your ass out." So, that's it, and I'll take your share of the money.
Mhm,
Um, we go up to the turret after this, and Phaedra tells Parv that she has to stop acting like an ice princess, and she's like, "You gotta stop doing that." And Parv is just, like, giving her that same stare, and she's like,
who's there?
"Really? You think to be nicer? Like, I have to be more lovable?" And she's like, "You give off Mean Girls a little bit." And then Phaedra makes fun of the face that she does,
That's
which I thought
amazing,
was
Katie. I
amazing to
love
her
it.
face, to her
And then
face.
she does it as Phaedra's making fun
Yes,
of her
as she's
face.
doing it. It was I love this moment from her. She's like, "You gotta stop. You have to be more lovable, like, soften your heart." And, Parv is annoyed by this, I guess, and she's like, "I'm really starting to question Phaedra."
Mhm.
And I think she would throw me under the bus, so, like, I have to keep my eye on her. And I'm like, "She's actually trying to help you.
Yeah,
Listen to
yeah,
her. It's good
I agree.
advice."
Yeah, Phaedra's just trying to look out for you, you know. I mean, I just thought it was really funny. Again, this was another Phaedra has been really doing a good job in the turrets. Like she always has something great to say, and I really like
Yes.
this just this whole time with Phaedra. The only thing that I do wish is I wish that Phaedra would be a bit more, okay, I understand that Parv is in more danger than she is, but I wish
Mhm.
Phaedra played this game with a little bit more fear. Like I
Yeah.
think anytime you play with these type of competition shows, which I think is something you see in like people who play who like when they repeat like Big Brother, they repeat Survivor, you learn that you need to come in this game. You can't trust, and you gotta have a little bit of fear in these games. And even after Phaedra's name was called out by Dan, I wish that would have turned her like brain on just a little bit to be a bit more aware that maybe my name might be thrown out. Maybe I do need to be playing a little bit harder. Because it seems like again in this church is like part of it's all on the heat's all on you, but Phaedra, unfortunately, there is some heat on you, and you should be thinking about that. So that's the only thing I wish I got a little bit more from Phaedra.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think if Phaedra does go out at some point, I think this is probably gonna be why, because I do think she is acting like she's a little bit too safe or a little bit
Yeah.
untouchable or, she does a great job of deflecting at the roundtables, but I think as evidence mounts up, it's going to be much harder for her to do that. It's going to be much harder for people to ignore.
Mhm.
And obviously at the breakfasts, we see her making funny comments about the food, but like we don't know if that's her real reaction when everybody finds out who's murdered. Like they could be just making it funny. But I do agree with you. Like she isn't acting on edge at all, like she's gonna go
Mhm.
out, and I do think that is probably one of the biggest, like, flashing lights above her if she does go out like, "This is a traitor, this is a traitor, this is a traitor," because she's not worried at all.
Yeah.
And, like, her name was just out yesterday. Dan tried
Ah,
to really do, like,
yeah.
hatchet her and, like, throw her completely in front of the bus, the train, whatever,
Mhm.
and she was very lucky that no one picked up on that, picked up on what he was trying to do,
Mhm.
other than Trishelle,
Yeah.
which this woman this woman. Um They're discussing options. They talk about Peter, and they're like, "Peter acts like he's in the mafia, like he
She
has his minions
does.
or whatever," and I just thought that was so funny. Like, everybody is just so just like us, so annoyed by Peter,
Yeah.
which I love. Um, the clear answer here, I think, is Bergie, but
Yeah.
I think the better move is Trishelle. I just don't think Phaedra realizes that Trishelle is onto her at this point, and I guess
Mhm.
we didn't really talk about it, at the beginning of the episode when Peter is saying to them, "We gotta get out Parv, we gotta get out Parv. I got recruited, I think Parv did it." Trishelle was pushing for Phaedra and was like, "Actually, I think it's Phaedra, like, I think
That's true.
Dan she's the one that picked up on what Dan was doing." And obviously Phaedra doesn't know that, but I just wish there was some kind of, like, something in them to be like, I think Trishelle's a little bit more dangerous than Bergie."
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. I wish that they would have gone for Trishelle over Bergie. Um, Especially part of me just feels that Bergie and Phaedra have a good relationship. And I wish she
Yeah.
would have leveraged that with Parv and say, all right, Parv, I know we got to get one of them out, but I have a better relationship with Bergie. And like, I feel like we should just take out Trishelle in this and then we can get Bergie another round. Do
Yeah.
something. Again, this just would have showed me that Phaedra has a bit more, is thinking a bit more about the game than just saying again like Parv, who do you want to kill type of situation. So I just
Right.
wish that they would have discussed that a bit more and Phaedra would have pushed a bit more for Trishelle. Even without knowing that Trishelle was going for her, I still think Trishelle would have been the better play just because she had a better relationship with Bergie. So
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that also goes back to her just because she doesn't feel like she's in danger.
mhm,
And she's just leaving it up to Parv because Parv is the one in danger, but it's like,
mhm.
well, Parvati obviously didn't make a good decision with Peter at trying to recruit him, so that's number 1, and, like, number 2, she obviously fell into Peter's trap. Like, it's just, like, maybe just have a little agency in the
Mhm,
conversation with her a little bit, and again, like, maybe she did and we didn't see it, but I do feel like it does feel like she's kind of just, like, going along with Parv's motions here, and
yeah.
I just think at the end of the day, like, Bergie, yes, is very loyal to Peter. Is he a better player than Trishelle? I don't really know. Trishelle also has CT. It just feels like, well, or maybe, and it just
Mhm,
I don't know, it just feels like Trishelle would have been a better move here. She's like a better game player. She's a poker player. She plays these games.
yeah.
It just feels like she's the second in command to Peter. So why not
Mhm,
take a shot at her instead of Bergie, who's just like there?
agreed.
Yeah. Anything else about this episode before we jump into episode 8?
No, I'm ready to get into episode 8 where we
Me
get
too.
a bit more stuff happening, but
Yes, it's a little bit of a meatier episode.
yeah.
Um, we open right up to breakfast to try and find out who well, not try, we do find out who the 5 one of the which one of the 5 has been killed. Sheree and CT are in first. CT's feeling nervous. He, like, spills coffee or something on Sheree, which I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, sir, what is wrong with you?" But he feels like it's his fault if Trishelle gets murdered, which
Mhm.
kinda would
Yeah.
have been, I guess,
A
right?
little bit, you're right.
Would have been. Sheree thinks it's gonna be Bergie or Trishelle out of the 5, which I was like, "Okay, Sheree, you're thinking. Good for
Mhm.
you." She wasn't saying some random she wasn't like, "It's gonna be MJ," which I was
MJ.
happy to at least see that she was thinking. So good for you. Phaedra and Sandra come in. CT is like, "We gotta get a traitor out now, and it's gotta be Parv," and, like, the group is on Parv, which
Mhm.
is again, like, it just feels like every episode they're on someone different, and there's, like, no fluidity from one episode to another because, like, the night before, they were all talking about Peter, and now it's like, "Okay, well, why are we now talking about Parv? Like, what happened to Peter?"
Yeah,
I'm confused.
yeah, you're right. I didn't really think about that way. I just felt like Par's name was out there, but you do make a good point because CT was in the conversations with Sandra and all the other ladies. So
Yeah. I
you're
know
right.
they're all like they spent the whole last episode talking about like it's the Peter pals versus these numbers. We got to get someone from that group. That seems to just be completely left to the side. Like they're not even talking about that anymore in this episode,
Mhm.
which I'm like, well, what happened? I was excited about that.
Yeah.
Um, CT says they have to get a traitor. It's got to be Parv, even though Peter can be annoying. And Phaedra says something here like, if you're Sherlock Holmes, be a nice Sherlock. Don't be Sherlock the Dick.
Sherlock the Dick.
Which I loved. I loved that from Phaedra.
Yep,
So
same.
funny.
So good.
Kevin and Peter come in. Kevin, I have to say, is egregious with the way he's pronouncing Parvati's name. He
Poverty.
literally just calling her Poverty over and over and over again. And I'm like, is no one telling you that that's not her name?
And everyone else is saying it correctly except him, and he's not even
Right. It's
making an
wild.
effort.
Not even a little bit. It's egregious. But he's basically like, there's no way Poverty is coming into the room because she's a traitor. In comes Kate and MJ. Everybody again talking about Parv being shady. And then she walks in with Trishelle, and it's Burgalicious. It's Phaedra's Burgalicious that is no longer with us. Which is, I think it was Bergie's time. As much as I wish it was Trishelle, I'm not upset that it's Bergie. I'm just, like we've been saying, annoyed with this whole group. So one of the two of them had to go. So it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take this as a small victory to lose one of
Yes.
the pals.
Especially the way Bergie was talking in episode 7, where he's like, well, we only know this much, but he just kept speaking in like we and like my group and this. And it's just like, oh, please, this is like, no, stop. It's just enough. So rest in peace, Bergie. John has us raise a cup to their dear departed friend. And Peter's pissed. Vengeance is coursing through his veins, Javier. He's pissed. He wants revenge.
I mean, whatever, Peter. That's how I feel about Peter at this point. Like, what?
Me too. Yeah, exactly. Phaedra wants cream cheese and preserves.
This woman.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, we'll get your cream cheese and preserves.
It's just funny how you mentioned the whole thing. Like, when is Phaedra really making these comments? Because it would be honestly insane if Phaedra made that comment right as they announced Brittany dead. She's like, oh, because I also would be like, girl, like, what?
I'd be like, hello, what happened to your dear sweet Burgalicious? Yeah. Well, you don't care anymore about it?
Yeah. So I hope that she did not say that the moment they announced Bergie was murdered.
I know, and that's exactly what she did with Tamara when they were like, oh my god, Tamara, and she's like, let me get that meat or whatever. Like or boiled eggs. I was like, oh my, what are we doing? I would love to know if that's editing or if that's really how maybe Andy Cohen might ask her. I think that will definitely get a segment at the reunion, so hopefully we find out. And then here comes Trishelle. She's telling us she's always thought Phaedra was a traitor. And I'm like, bitch, no, you didn't. You have not said a word until Dan said
exactly.
It. I want to ask your opinion. What do you think about what Dan did here? Because there's a lot of discourse about this on the internet. And do you feel like it's fair that Dan kind of did this and threw Phaedra very clearly under the bus? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, well, Dan ruined the game. Because he very clearly gave them a traitor.
If I'm being honest, I wasn't happy when Dan did it. I think we talked about that on the podcast. I was like, my fear from Dan doing this would be that Phaedra would become a target. And honestly, as someone who's a fan of Phaedra and I'm rooting for the traitors usually to win, it does kind of feel like Dan, I don't want to say he ruined the season, because he did what he needed to save himself. So I'm not mad at Dan for doing what he did. I'm just sad that it comes at me losing Phaedra. Like if it was like a Big Brother Canada, for example, we saw Magic Mike often go head to head with his traitors, and somehow that never went back to bite him in the ass.
Right.
I was kind of hoping somehow Phaedra can do that whole Magic Mike spiel and make it that it doesn't come back to hurt her. But yeah, it's just, I'm mad at Dan, but also I understand why he did it, so I can't be that mad. So overall, it turns into just sadness for Phaedra, because I do feel like Phaedra could have very much won this game if Dan wouldn't have done that.
Yes, I agree with you. I think the difference between Mike and Dan, and I'm going to say something positive about Mike here, so is that Mike played it correctly in the sense that, like, he heard Kuzi's name, or he
Mhm.
heard whatever that other lady's name was in the beginning. Was it Erica? No.
No, no.
No. Yeah, no, that was that other lady. And he went on, like, what was already a little bit of a suspicion, and then he, like, leaned in. He didn't just pick a name out of the sky that nobody said and then just be like,
Exactly.
"Phaedra." 'Cause then, of course, it's like, okay, well, you're a traitor, and you know Phaedra's another traitor, so you're kind of just, like, almost just spoiling the game for everybody by just
Mhm.
outing another traitor, whereas Dan could have, instead of saying, like, "I'm gonna wait for the round table, I'm gonna wait for it at the round table," put some seeds out. Him and Parv could have worked together a little bit, maybe thrown her under the bus a little to save themselves. Not that I want that to happen, but, like, that's kind of how you play the game instead of just
Mhm.
going to the round table and saying a random name and
Mhm.
then being like, "Oh, well, obviously he's giving us a traitor because if we voted with him, we would have seen it was a traitor and it would have got a heat off of him."
Yep.
It just feels almost like you're outing a traitor at that point
Mhm. Yeah,
without,
I
like,
agree.
any team behind it, which is a little frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. It's very frustrating, but it's just like, yeah, it is frustrating. But I again, like I said earlier, I can't say I don't want to. I understand kind of why Dan did it, but I just wish he
Mhm.
wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I wish he would have at least done it differently. Like,
Differently.
this
Yeah.
happened a little bit in UK, in the 1st season, where I think we talked about it a little bit, where one of the traders at the very end was recruited very similarly to how Kate was recruited. So we're jumping ahead, but Kate was recruited at the end of this episode with the ultimatum, so they kinda had to do it. And he was, like, thrown immediately under the bus by the other traitor, and he voted for that traitor at the end who recruited him and said, like, a parting gift when he said the vote. So everyone was like, "Oh, like, is he telling us?" Like, so it's almost like, oh, everybody was so mad that that guy did that because otherwise the traitor probably would have won the game. Where I'm like, well, Dan kind of did very almost worse because Phaedra could have won the game if it weren't for Dan. Maybe she does. I mean, maybe she's still. I really don't know, but it is a little frustrating to watch because Trishelle now is saying, "I've always felt Phaedra's a traitor. I have so many notes, but my biggest thing is that Dan said it." So I'm like, well, fuck, dude, this sucks.
Yeah. And her notes are BS, but we'll get into that.
They are complete. You have pages and pages of notes saying absolutely nothing. Okay, but we'll talk about it. Yeah. So I don't know, a little frustrating, but um, Alan really killed me here when he came in and said to Bergie, like, where he took the picture of Bergie, he said, rest in peace, whatever, and he was like, "Let bygones be bygones," and then he violently threw the photo of Bergie onto the floor, and he
Yes.
went, "Bye, gone," and I'm like,
Um,
all right, Alan has me now. He got me. He got me. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I
I
love
agree.
you completely.
I thought that moment was really funny. I was like, okay, you did a good job there, Alan. That was good.
Yeah, that was very funny. He does tell them that we're gonna be the players that we're going to his holiday home, and there's a guest staying there helping him get settled in. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
it's our Dr. Will episode.
Yep.
Um, so I was excited. I'm there are a lot of Dan stands out there. I am a Dr. Will girly. I love Dr. Will.
Mm.
He's my favorite Big Brother player. So I will always be excited to see anything he does. But I have a lot of opinions about the usage of Dr. Will on this show. Maybe questions more than opinions because I'm just confused, but we'll get there. Trishelle, though, after breakfast, immediately pulls Peter into the armory, and she's like, okay, yeah, Parv probably is a traitor. We know that. But we really need to go for Phaedra. We have the numbers now to get Phaedra. Um, she has too many numbers, and if we keep going after other people, we're never gonna have the numbers to get her out. So we have to go for her now. And
Mhm.
Peter's kind of like, no, no, I don't really want to do that. We got to go for Parv. And she's like, I'm thinking way ahead. You're only thinking about like this week, whatever. She's like, I'm thinking 3 steps ahead. We have the numbers now. Let's do it. And she kind of I don't even say she kind of convinces Peter. She does convince Peter. Kevin is also comes in. He joins the conversation, and she's talking about the twitch in Phaedra's eye, which she's not wrong. She does twitch her eye a little bit. And Kevin's like, "Oh yeah, I noticed that." But I mean, again, her main thing is like Dan was
Yep.
giving us a traitor to save himself. So they all kind of agree. They're like, okay, fine. Like we can try and get on Parv's good side and get her to work with us and go after Phaedra now, and then we'll go after Parv. Like she's a
Mhm.
wounded bird. They keep saying she's on her own. She doesn't have anyone. But Phaedra is very insulated, and she says like by the Bravo girls, like she's insulated. She's always they're never gonna vote for her.
Mhm.
I was worried here. Were you? I was terrified for Phaedra at this point.
I was very terrified for Phaedra. And as much as I keep saying Trishelle annoys me, she still does very much annoy me, but she does make a few good points here. So, you
Yeah,
know,
she does.
I'm going to give her props, even though I don't want her in the game any longer.
I know, and this is at this point, I was like, they should have murdered her. Like, she should not
Yeah,
be. Fergie wouldn't be gathering the troops like
at
this.
all.
Yeah. So this was, I think, a bad move for them leaving her in the game. Obviously, they didn't know that this was going to happen, but
Yeah.
we also do see MJ eavesdropping again on this conversation. But did we see MJ do anything with this? I don't actually remember if we saw her bring. Oh yes, she did. MJ did go spill the beans to. I wrote it down. My bad. To Trishelle, Kate, CT, and Sandra. That I'm jumping way ahead. My bad. She eavesdropped on the conversation between Parv and Peter. So
Pardon,
sorry,
Peter.
I'm reading my notes completely wrong. Peter, before this, snags Parvati to have a conversation. He's trying to make up some ground. This conversation, by the way, so I just feel like these two have like a lot of weird flirty tension because
Mhm.
that's
I
how
agree
just
with that.
Parv plays the game with men. Like I don't think she has any interest in Peter whatsoever, but she does flirt with men and she does it in Survivor. Like this is something that she does, she uses, that's why they call it the Black Widow, whatever. And Peter is the Bachelor. So I just feel like they're both using like their
I
TV
agree.
history and it actually makes me uncomfortable to watch. Like I'm like, ooh, I don't like ooh. I'm like watching this and Peter's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I can't. This is like grossing me out.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely got that energy as well.
Yeah, it was giving me like the ick watching Peter talk to her the way he was talking to all the girls in The Bachelor. It was like grossing me out. But they have a conversation. Parv just says like I chose the wrong person to trust in Dan, and now I feel like I have this like mark on me that I can't get off. And Peter's like, blah blah blah. They just kind of come to an understanding, like maybe you're not maybe you're not a traitor, and maybe we can work together. I think it's Phaedra, and Parv is like, I'll do whatever, like whatever to get it off my back. I don't care. Like we can work together, and we'll go for Phaedra. How did you feel about all this work from Peter?
So at first I was a little annoyed at Parv for like so easily just buying into this plan. Like I feel like it's from a mile away you can see that Peter's just trying to use you for another week till they
Right.
get Phaedra out. But the other side of it is that, Parv doesn't really have any allies left. She is essentially whatever buys her one more week. So I also understand from Parv's side why she's okay with the plan, because if I don't say yes to this, like Peter and his gang and everyone are just gonna take me out.
Yeah.
So I do feel like, Parv's back's against the wall, so she's going to do whatever she can to survive another week. But I just wish that we would have gotten a confession of Parv saying, I ain't buying any of this. I'm just going to
Yeah.
agree with it so I can last another week, as opposed to like, oh, yes, I'm buying it and hopefully me and Peter can work moving forward. I just wish I would have seen Parv be more aware of that.
Yeah, me too. And I just feel like Peter felt like he was laying it on so thick here
Yeah.
that he just doesn't come across genuine at all.
Mhm.
And I just think he was doing way too much. And I understand Parv's desire to do some self-preservation here, but it does feel like she could have used this against Peter at the round table and saved her and Phaedra instead of going along with it. Like, not that she has to, right? Like, I think at some point it's going to be the two of them against each other, but it does feel like why put more stock in Peter, who has been going against you this entire time, instead of bringing the information to Phaedra and then trying to the troops were against Peter last week. Let's get the troops back on Peter this week. Like it just feels like you could have worked with the non-Peter pals to go after
Mhm.
Peter this week.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of that. I think, yeah, she could have like gone to like Sandra and that crew
Yeah.
and been like, by the way, guys, Peter just tried to pitch an alliance with me after thinking I'm the traitor this whole game. Like, this is very suspicious. Like, why is he trying to do this? And yeah, maybe you're right. They could have gotten Peter out that way. And she could have saved her and Phaedra. So I didn't even think of that. I think you're right. I think, yeah, Parv is just feeling very desperate at this point, and for
Mhm.
some reason she didn't look that far ahead. But I think that would have been a good way to play it.
Yeah, just something I don't know. I just don't I think Parv is too smart to trust Peter, obviously. And yeah, I guess it gets you another week, but I just don't feel like this was necessarily the right call here. But whatever, what are we
Mhm.
gonna do? But yes, MJ is listening to this conversation in the kitchen, and she goes and spills the beans to Trishelle, who like whatever, Kate, CT, and Sandra. that she's talking to Peter, and Kate gives like a hilarious comment about that she did Bikram yoga once, and that yoga teachers have the voice that want you to stay, like that make you want to stay in hell or keep you in hell, which I just thought was so funny because she said, Parv is a yoga teacher and she has that voice, which Kate is always throwing out these funny one-liners. Still, she's just consistent, which I love.
I agree.
Yeah. We head to the mission. In the car, Trelle is telling Parv that she doesn't think she's a traitor anymore. Neither does Peter, which Sandra's in the car for this. And I'm like, Sandra, are you not like, what the fuck? Now Peter doesn't think Parv's a traitor? What are you talking about? She said she has a shitload of notes on Phaedra. But Sandra tells us in a confessional she's still suspicious of Parv. And she's like, I'm getting to the end no matter what. So like, if it's Parv, it's Parv. We get to this mission. And I hate this mission. I don't know how you feel about this mission. I hated this mission. I hated it when I saw it in the UK. I hated it, I think, even more in this in this season, because at least in the UK it led to an interesting situation with the Shield after, but this, I hated it. The only good thing about it was Dr. Will.
Yeah, this mission had literally no weight to the game. It did nothing.
Nothing. And I also feel like we were robbed of Janelle and Dan seeing Dr. Will, because even just Parv was like, is that Dr. Will? He's supposedly the most devious Big Brother player. And then Sandra was like, I know you, Dr. Will. And that's it. No one else gave a shit about Dr. Will. I'm like, we are wasting such potential with Dr. Will here because he's amazing. And I don't know. What a waste of time for this man.
That's true, but we did get some funny like pans. They pan to like Sheree, Kate, and Phaedra. They all look at like, why do I care? Who is this? Yeah, I thought that was a little entertaining, but I do agree with you. It wasn't wasted. Dr. Will. I mean, I guess he got his check, so good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, it would have been great to see just Dan and Dr. Will. I don't think we've ever seen them on the TV.
No, I don't think so.
Episode, special, anything together, and just to see like the two who people consider as like the greats of Big Brother, like
two greatest,
interact. It would have just been would have been great to just see. I don't know what they would have said to each other, whatever. Just would have been nice to see.
I also would have loved to see Janelle and Will back together so many years later. They have their flirtmance history. Janelle, well, I don't want to spoil Big Brother for anybody, but Big Brother 7 was an iconic season, one of the best.
Yes,
so like watch. Top, probably my favorite season. So I feel like we were robbed, but I'm always happy to see Dr. Will on my screen. He's, like I said, he's my favorite, so I'm never going to complain. I just feel like flying this man all the way from California to Scotland was probably a waste of his time, but hopefully they paid well. And maybe let's bring him back. Let's have him back like on the show next season, maybe.
Maybe that's what they're trying to do here.
I would love it. He also always does make great TV. Like he has great delivery. He's just very funny. So I just feel like he delivered. When he slammed the door on them in that cabin and was like, the best part about this is trying to get out. I was just like, oh, Will. I love Will.
Played into it, so it's good.
Yeah. So basically, Dr. Will has been renting this janky-ass cabin from Alan. And, he was trying to make it cozy. He let them in. He locked them inside and was like, good luck getting out. And there's $20,000 of gold available. They have 30 minutes to get everyone out of the cabin, and everyone who does not escape costs them $1,000. So this is kind of a little bit of an escape room, a little bit of like a fear factor, a little bit of all of the above, where they find directions under stuff on the table and they have to go through tunnels underneath the cabin and get the gold on the way out. And there's also a shield down there. And then every one of them has to go through and get out. Upstairs, there are 2 buttons that people have to hold to keep the lights on downstairs. And if they take the hands off, then the lights will go back on upstairs. But here's where like the fear factor stuff comes in, is like they're dumping like maggots and bugs. And then there's like roaches all over the place. And this is stuff that I can't, like, I don't ever want to see roaches. I don't want to see them in my real life. I don't want to see them on television. We both live in New York. We're very familiar with roaches. I don't need to ever see them on TV. I just like watching Trelle covered in roaches crawling through this thing. I like couldn't even look at my screen. I was so grossed out.
Yeah, I mean, this great, like it's a very like fear factor challenge. But I will say I used to really enjoy Fear Factor.
Oh, I can't watch. I can't watch it like that.
So I think that would have made it more entertaining to me if it would have been like a Fear Factor as challenge where they had to like eat crazy stuff.
Ugh, that I'm like, no, I can't. I hate an eating challenge. I don't know what's worse is like watching bugs and like maggots or like watching people eat bugs and maggots. Like I can't. I can't.
But yeah, no, I agree. It's gross. I will say like CT, Trelle, they took it like champs. So
yeah, they have experience. I feel like more than anyone else.
It shows that they're, again, this also just highlighted to me. I think in the beginning of the season, someone was like, CT was going to be such a comp beast, and like CT literally carried this challenge on his back.
Yes.
Without CT, they would have made $0. CT did like everything. So
he went back in and
he went back, Katie. I was like, this man's insane.
I know. And I feel like here's the other thing is like when they have like frogs and rats in, I feel really bad for the animals because I'm like, these are living things. Like bugs are bugs. They are also living things. But like Trelle was like climbing on rats to get the shield. And I was like, oh, she's going to crush these rats. I don't know. The whole thing was really stressing me out. And then when CT went back in, he was like feeling around on top of the frogs. And I was like, oh my God, please someone like help these poor frogs. I hope they're okay. I don't know. I just like, I was stressed. I'm stressed out. But they all left Kevin upstairs by himself. Everybody quit except Kevin in the house, which like, that's the worst part. I mean, that's the easiest part is being in the cabin, not being in the tunnel. I guess they do have to go down into the tunnel eventually to get out. But like who was it? MJ, Phaedra, Kate quit.
Mm-hmm. One more, four women.
Yes, for Sandra?
No, Sandra was in the tunnels.
Because Sheree finished, right?
No, Sheree and Kate quit.
Oh, Sheree quit. Okay.
So Sheree, Kate,
all the
MJ.
Bravo girls.
Yeah.
John?
No.
Okay. Yeah, all the Bravo girls.
I only got 3 of them. I don't know who the 4th person is.
I'm being a bad note.
MJ, Phaedra, Sheree, Kate. Yep, those are the 4 quit.
Bravo girls. Okay.
Yeah, all the Bravo. Yeah, you're right. All the Bravo.
So they left Kevin upstairs all by himself. And he had to keep his hands on lights. He was getting dumped on. Ugh, it just is so disgusting. Kate was like looking up and she's like, I see a trapdoor. I'm not standing here. She knew. Yeah. She knew
that was really funny. Kate is very perceptive, y'all.
Yes, she knew.
Don't count Kate out, y'all.
Right, exactly. So they got I think they got all the money or most of the money, but they lost from the 4 of them that didn't escape. So they ended up with what, 11K, I think, out of a potential 20, which is pretty good. And Trelle ended up getting the shield. CT let her have the shield.
Yeah.
To make up for, their drama from the night before. So they should hopefully be back in good graces with each other. Plus CT's not getting murdered.
Yeah, he's fine. He doesn't need
that. Yeah. What are your final thoughts about this mission? This was my least favorite mission of the entire season.
Yeah, this mission was lame. Like you said, wasted Dr. Will cameo. Also, we do see another moment in the tunnels where Peter's like, don't tell anyone that you got the shield.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And so we did get that to happen again. So reason 3003 of why I'm sick of Trelle and Peter.
Yeah, I'm really over it. Yeah, Alan at the end does say, there was a shield that was won, but they don't announce who has it, which like, okay, whatever. On the second time I watched this episode, I did fast forward through, and this looked like it took up almost half the episode. Like they spent so much time on this challenge. Yeah. We really didn't get a lot of good stuff from this challenge, other than Kevin being left alone. But when they get back to the house, CT was like, oh, the girls all ditched you or whatever. He's like, yeah, I'm used to it. It was like from high school, which I thought was pretty funny. I was like, that was a good sport, Kevin. Peter is convincing Parv, like, don't worry, we have the votes. Like, you don't need to be worried. But she wants to go talk to John because he's the most faithful of all the faithfuls. And she puts on a show here for our guy, John. She gets very emotional and she tells him that when she feels like she's under attack, she becomes icy and she puts up a wall because she feels like she trusted the wrong person in Dan. The target is now stuck to her. So the only way she knows how to deal with this is masking her emotions. And this is what's gotten her through the last few years of her life because she's gone through a lot. And this is kind of like what got her through. What did you think about this moment from Parv here?
I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little overwhelmed when she brought out like the past few years of my life. I was like, is this a joke or is she trying to emotional manipulation? And I mean like work, because we've seen people lie about their dead parents on these shows. Like, do what you need to do whatever it takes to win. But I don't know. I felt uncomfortable because I couldn't tell if Parv was playing a game or being genuine with John. And that's what made me uncomfortable. If I knew that she was just playing the game, then I wouldn't have felt as uncomfortable. But yeah, just hearing her just mention the fact about like all her outside issues, and when you bring that into the game, that always makes it a little bit like uneasy. Like even if I understand why people do it, it still makes me uneasy. So yeah, I guess uneasy is the best way. I just felt very uneasy during the whole thing. Like I didn't know to feel bad for Parv or to be like, oh, she's just trying to manipulate this guy.
I felt exactly the same way because I didn't know if she was being honest or not. And then like part of me felt, I know this is Parv's thing and that she's the Black Widow and that she, manipulates people and she's really good at it. But I just felt bad for John if she was manipulating, which I know obviously she was to a certain extent, whether she was being honest or not, that was the goal, right? It was to get John on her side. I just feel like John is such a genuine, nice old man that I like kind of felt a little bad that she was like trying to use this against him. Whatever. He's an adult. He's a politician. He's probably dealt with worse. But I was just like, damn, she's really going in. And at the end, she was like, if this works, I should like go into acting. So I'm like, oh, is she lying?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess she's telling the truth. I don't know. I felt the same way. I was like, I don't know how I should feel about this right now. I mean, this is why we love Parv, right? This is why she was on the Villains Tribe and Heroes versus Villains. She's good at this stuff. And I was like, I think maybe this worked on John until we get to the round table. But I thought maybe she got him.
I agree with you. At this point, I thought, okay, yeah, good job. Like she got on her side.
And he was very sweet to her. He did say like, nobody reveals and displays greater guts and character than you. And what you just really have to do is demonstrate that you are faithful by like playing a faithful player that won't chop off my head. And I was like, no, look, John.
So which makes it even crazier to see what happens later.
I know.
We'll get to that.
Yes. Yeah. But she does tell us like, if I can get away with this, then I have a career in acting. So which tells me like, whether true or not, she really was just putting it on. And I'm also kind of like, I guess she took some of Phaedra's advice because Phaedra did call her the Ice Queen. And now she's like, I know I become icy. I know. So I was like, okay, so she's listening to Phaedra from the night before. That's good, I guess. Although, it's to Phaedra's detriment at the end of the day. Phaedra, we get another funny moment where she's in the kitchen and she's like, ooh, yummy pork belly. And she's eating it. She's like, so yummy pork belly. She's all by herself. And then she's like, where is everybody? And I'm like, Phaedra, what are we doing here? Just eating this pork belly alone in the kitchen, in the breakfast room, whatever.
Yeah, and then we got that, like, I don't know, for some reason, it felt like an eternity seeing Phaedra walk around this house after that. And I was again, this must be the editing because Phaedra could not have walked around for 10 minutes and not found anyone. Like, there's no way.
I know, right? They were all like in a place where they always are. It's not like they were hiding. So I'm just like, where's she going? What is she doing? I don't know. That was funny to me. That she was just like, where is everybody? I'm just like, she's just eating her pork belly, walking around looking for everyone. She can't find anybody. And Trelle, they're all sitting in one of the rooms. I don't know what room at this point, but Trelle is pitching the plan to everybody pretty much. Kate, CT is there. There's a number of people there. Phaedra's there. No, I'm sorry, not Phaedra. Sorry, Phaedra walks in, but CT, Sandra, John, Kate, those are all the people that are in the room. So Trelle's like, I have the shield. Like, I'm not worried tonight. And CT is like, listen, whatever's the most compelling is what I'll do. And this is kind of where Kate's like, okay, but we've been saying Parvati this whole entire time. Ever since I got in this game, I've just been hearing Parvati, Parvati, Parvati. Why are we throwing a wrench in the Parvati plan? And this is again where Trelle's like, I have a shitload of notes. Like, I have so many notes, like my whole notebook. I'll show you my notebook. If I'm wrong, I'll burn my notes. And then Phaedra walks in and everybody gets awkward and quiet.
Oh man, that was so, like, first of all, I want to say I agree with Kate. I think we should like, whatever, the Phaedra thing, great idea. Don't worry, we'll come back to it. But I agree with Kate. We have one goal at the moment and we should stick to that. So I thought that was actually smart from Kate's end.
Yeah.
But also, when they got so quiet and everyone started leaving, like, well, time for me to go to bed, someone said, and I'm like, well, this is so awkward. And unfortunately, I don't feel like Phaedra picked up on that. Like, she said it's a little awkward, but she didn't, like, again, that didn't like turn on something in her brain, like, whoa, like maybe people are pitching mine in because why else would they get awkward? It's just she says, oh, things are awkward, as opposed to things are awkward because I arrived, so maybe I should do something about So
Yeah, in the confessional, she was like, "Things are weird today, but I don't think my name is gonna come up. It just like feel." And I'm like, "Why wouldn't you think your name's gonna come up?
exactly, it came
No
up.
one's talking to you. You're alone. You're searching the house for 25 minutes by yourself. You can't find anybody, and everybody shut up when you came in the room." Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
She just said she felt paranoid that day because no one is safe, but she doesn't think her name will come up. Um, so we head to the round table. Is there anything else we're missing before we head to the round table, or should we jump in?
No, I think we should jump in.
Okay. No matter what, we're losing a traitor tonight. It's
Yeah.
going to be either Parv or Phaedra. That's clear. Trishelle does seem convinced that Kate, MJ, and Sheree will never vote for Phaedra. I think this could obviously it's true tonight. I don't think that especially MJ and Sheree were even really brought into this plan or this supposed plan or the pitch. But I could see MJ at some point voting against Phaedra. I don't think that she is like super, super loyal to Phaedra. Like, I'm still not seeing like we have the Peter Pals, this formed group. I'm not seeing that with the Bravo girls. Like, I know that they are going to look out for each other, but I don't think they're going to risk their game. Like, Sheree, I do think is never going to vote for Phaedra. That I think is the truth.
Mhm.
I don't know so much about MJ and Kate.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that the reason, like, at the end of the day, I think the reason Peter and Trishelle and his pals all think that the Bravo girls are unbreakable is because they're not doing anything to try to break it.
Right.
And it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like when MJ tried to like come in and join the conversation. If you would have given them just a little, then I think their path to getting Phaedra out this round would have been easier, getting anyone out. Because I do think that Kate and MJ are malleable in this game and they will
Mhm.
go where they think makes sense. But they're not even allowing these women that opportunity to work with them. So why would they work with you? It's like
Well, exactly.
you group these people together. Of course, they're going to work together. Like if you throw, it's poor gameplay on their part. And luckily, this is not a game where like at the end you have to like vote for each other. If this was like a Big
Right.
Brother game, I feel like this would be terrible gameplay. But they would never want to vote for you. But I guess at this
Mhm.
game, you can just keep taking people out until you're left with the people you want. So I guess it works in this game. But yeah, it's just bad gameplay on their part, and it's the reason they're isolating these women, so that's why they're not on your side. So
Well, exactly, and it's almost like I feel like in games like a Big Brother, when you see alliances form like these Peter Pal people, and you're just like assuming, oh, like these are the people outside of the alliance, you're almost forcing them to work together, whether they want to or not. And yes, I do think the four of them would naturally gravitate towards each other,
Mhm.
but I don't think they would be this unbreakable four if they didn't have this force of the Peter Pals not bringing them like, exactly like you said, not bringing them into anything, not sharing anything with them. It's like they're literally forcing their hand to stick together. So it just I don't know, it just feels a little short-sighted to me.
Yeah.
Especially, like, if I'm Trishelle and eventually I'm up for banishment or something like that, I mean, she probably won't be just because people do think she's a faithful, but, like, don't you want those people to trust you enough to not vote you out at a round table? It just is bad gameplay all around what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because if anything, I think if you were really smart, what you would be doing if you're Trishelle is I want to have the upper hand on Peter at the end of the day. So
Yes.
I'm gonna act and be more friendly to these individuals. So if like you said, the time comes, I have a one up on Peter because they
Yeah,
trust
they'll
me more
trust you.
than Peter. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. She's for someone who said I'm thinking 3 steps ahead. I
Yeah.
don't know if you're necessarily thinking 3 steps ahead.
I don't think she was. Yeah. Um, Alan does tell us that the prize pot is now up to $114,500. I haven't been keeping track of all of the totals, so I don't know what they could be at yet if they maxed out, but we'll find out soon. So just want to give a quick update on their total.
Mhm.
Feels kind of good to be back at a round table after the safety chain last week. What do you think?
I agree. I'm happy to be back at Round Table. Usually that's where we get the best TV.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Yes. Me too. It's always like leading right up to the round table and the round table that I feel like are the best parts of the episode.
Yeah.
Parv starts the conversation off, which I was actually surprised. I wasn't really expecting that from her.
Same.
But she brings up the same thing she brought up to John. She just becomes a brick wall when she's in a tough situation, and she just really made a poor decision trusting Dan. And she made a mistake being friends with him, and that just put her into a poor predicament. What do you think about this? Do you think this is a good argument from her? Yeah.
I just feel like Parv is just kind of like how Dan was in last time we talked. It's just I think Parv is kind of screwed in this game. I just don't see how she can maneuver her way out of the situation. So whatever excuse she gave, I just don't think it was going to be a good excuse. Like I really do not know. I don't know if you can allude what you think that Parv could have said to even give her any shot of surviving this game, but I just don't see it for her. So like, I mean, good for her for trying, but I don't know what Parv could do, honestly.
I don't know what she could do either at this point. And I think it's weird, and I kind of wish that we got a chance to see them talking more about Parv earlier on, because obviously, like, we've heard in interviews and stuff, and exit press, that Parvati's name has been out there for a long time, but they haven't really showed it.
Mm-hmm.
Would have liked to have just seen like the whole arc of Parv, because it feels like it did come to a head after this Peter trap, which doesn't necessarily point to Parv. It got Dan. Like all he needed was one of the three of those people who he told that he had the shield to be a traitor, and like Dan very clearly was. So obviously there's more going on with Parv than we saw other than that trap. So I kind of just wish we got a chance to see it earlier so we could really give a fair critique to Parv's game, because right now it looks like it's like she's making squinty faces and
Mm-hmm.
she's just being quiet. And I don't know. I mean, I wish we could see more so we could say like, oh, she should have done this, this, or this. I just don't feel like we've seen enough
Yeah, I agree.
necessarily.
I agree with you fully. I don't feel like the edit, as we talk about, has
Mhm.
really made me think that Parv has been the target for so long.
Yeah.
If she was a target because she was associated with Dan, I still wish they would have said that more throughout the first few episodes. Like, oh, we're gonna go for Dan, but then we're gonna go for Parv because she's been so associated with
Right.
Dan. But I don't feel like we saw those conversations either. So maybe it's nothing that she done, just the fact that she's with Dan. I don't think it was really brought up as much as she brings it up. I don't know. I don't know necessarily
Yeah.
if that's why they're targeting her. And if there is, like you said, we haven't heard those conversations. Like
Right.
low key, I don't really know why they're targeting Parv.
I don't either. And I think that's my thing, is like, I don't know what she could have done or said, because I really don't know why they're going after her. And you're right. She's the only one that's bringing up Dan at this point. Like, the only
Mhm.
other time we hear anything about Dan is when Trishelle is talking about Dan throwing out Phaedra. So it's like, okay, what's the connection with Dan? Like, I don't know. It's just, I kind of wish I just knew more, but it seems like no matter what, she would not be in a good situation here. Even if she did kind of what we were saying earlier and tried to get people against Peter, it would have worked for an extra day probably, because Peter at the end of the day is a faithful. So like, it's, I don't
Yeah.
know. It would have, I think whatever she could have done, it would have only bought her an extra day or two and not
Mhm.
gotten her to the end of the game.
Agreed.
So she's, I guess, doomed. Trishelle comes in right away and she goes in on Phaedra. And she's like, I actually don't have that much on Parv, other than like, I went through my notes and you're quiet and you're acting suspicious, which I'm like, okay, I mean, same. That's all we really see too. And she's like, but for
Yeah.
Phaedra, I have a huge list. So I'm going to start with the least compelling. And Phaedra's like, okay, like, go ahead. She says, you're never surprised at breakfast if you don't have a reaction. Um, and Phaedra's like, what would make you think I'm surprised at who's murder? I don't want to. I'm going to cut myself off and just say, like, this again is another masterclass from Phaedra at the round table, which, like,
Mhm.
I'm just, she, even when she doesn't know it's coming, she can just snatch it up immediately. But she said, what would make you think I'm not surprised at who's murdered? I have been nervous numerous times. I don't know what you want me to do to be nervous. I'm not frantic like you. And I'm like,
Yes, that was great.
oh man, Trishelle, what a mess. I loved it.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, it's true. Like you can't police how Phaedra reacts to people being murdered. That's not a valid reason to target someone. So
Right, and that was one of Dan's reasons as well, is, like, her reactions at the breakfast, and I'm like, "Okay,
mhm.
that went nowhere the first time, so why are we bringing that up again?"
It's almost
Um,
like Trichelle's book is just recycled things from what other people have said.
from Dan. Yeah, from what Dan
So
said, it's the same argument. Yeah,
yeah.
but I've always thought from the beginning, okay, Trishelle. And then she says, the most compelling was Dan throwing her under the bus.
Mhm.
Um, and John does come in here and say, like, what incentive would Dan have, knowing he was about to get banished, to lie and throw you under the bus if it were a lie? And Phaedra, actually, I thought she had a good response here, especially being so caught off guard. Like, this really showed me that Phaedra can play this game, because
Mhm.
I feel like she didn't have a heads up. She was going against multiple people and not just Dan, whereas Dan, obviously, she
True.
knew Dan's game, so she had like an arsenal to throw against Dan because she's been with him the whole time as a traitor. This was all a surprise to her, and she didn't really have that much of an arsenal against other people, and I feel like she did actually come up with really good rebuttals to what everyone was saying. But she said, "I would think he would protect the traitors and wouldn't give away someone who was a traitor. Like, I would assume he would just pick someone random." And Kate actually, I think, really also helped Phaedra here and was like,
Yes.
"I wish last year it would have been this easy. Every time a traitor got voted out, we just voted for the person they voted for and got the next traitor. But like that, this game is not that easy."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very happy to see Kate speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was a little sad, or not sad, but I was a little annoyed that Kate joined halfway through. But I do feel like she's playing a different game than the first season.
Very different.
She is like actually involved in the game conversations, and she's not just being like petty, which I loved in season 1. But I think in this game she's being a bit more strategic, and I think that I'm, now liking the addition of Kate, which at first I was like a little like annoyed. But I think Kate is adapting to the game, which was surprising to me, but I'm very happy to see.
Me too. I actually wanted to mention that and ask your opinion on Kate now that she's been here a few episodes, because I feel like she's playing such a different game and she's playing much better than she played in the first season. And I wonder if part of that has to do, well, one, obviously she knows the game much better and she's had a year to not like research or anything, but maybe, she's probably been on podcasts, listened to podcasts. She had the reunion. And the other part of it, I think, is because in the first season, she was up against the wall the entire time and didn't really have a chance to breathe or be strategic. She was always defending herself. And here she has a little bit more breathing room to actually be part of the discussion. Whereas last year it was just like everybody was coming at her. So I'm happy to see that we are getting more strategy from Kate, and I'm really enjoying watching her play so far.
I agree.
Yeah, I think she's I agree. I wish she was in from the beginning, but I like the addition of her now. So yeah, Kate says that. Kevin brings up Phaedra's eye twitch, and she's like, "I've never heard anybody said that." And he goes, "I just want to ask you, like, have you grown up with twitches?" Which I thought was a really funny and weird question to ask. And she's like, "I've literally never heard that a day in my life."
Yeah, the twitches thing. What if she did grow up with twitches? What if that's something like Phaedra feels some type of way about? Like, don't call her out on it. That might be one of her insecurities,
Right.
It's just a weird thing for me to hear someone target someone for.
Yeah.
Because some people have twitches they can't control. Like, it's just it is what it is.
Yeah, it is a little strange. Trisha was like, "I noticed that too. I noticed that too." CT comes in and he's like, "John, what are you feeling? Like, what's your intuition?"
Oof.
And John comes in hot and says, "Parvati could well be a duchess of deception and a mistress of murder." And he calls her out about being worried about banishment, but she's never been worried about a murder. You're serene at the thought of murder, but you're always worried about banishment, which was a very good observation from John.
Yeah, I agree. Very astute.
Yeah, very. She did not plead for her life in the woods the night before, while others did, because she knew she wasn't going to get murdered because she's a traitor. And she, to be fair, I think had a good response to this. Feels more like there's more suspicion on her, so she knows she's not going to get murdered, because why would the traitors murder her? Like, she could get banished. People think she's a traitor. Why would the traitors murder someone with so much heat on them? So I do think that was a good response, but I don't think it was enough from her, obviously. And here comes Peter jumping right in on Phaedra. He doesn't feel like she's felt true fear that comes along with being a faithful. And she goes, "Yeah, since you're the faithful king, right?" And I was like, "Yes, yes." And he's like, "Well, I didn't say that. I never said that." I hate Peter.
Squirm a little.
Me too.
I can't. I just can't stand the man. I'm sorry.
I cannot stand the man either. I think he had one good episode with the plan, and he knew, and it got to his head, and now he's just completely insufferable and horrible. And I hate him. I can't wait until he goes.
Smug all the time. I can't. I hate when people look smug. Like, even this episode when he was voting out Phaedra, he had this smug look on his face, and it's just it gives me the ick. Me
too. And then when he was talking to Parv, he had this look on his face. I just like can't. I can't stand him. I can't stand him. Trelle says that a lot of people have gone home for a lot less, which she's not wrong, but that was also at the very beginning of the game. Like, you don't have anything to go on at the beginning of the game. And Kate comes in again and she's like, "I just am confused because everybody was so strong on Parv and now everything has changed. Like, why has everything changed?" And Peter's like, well, I had a conversation with Parv that changed my mind. And then Phaedra comes in. And this I loved because I did not
Yes.
expect this from her. And I love it. And she's like, yeah, well, they have a backdoor deal going down. We were in the armory and he came in and he wanted to work with us. And I excused myself from the conversation. But he said, you know, him and Parv were saying, oh yeah, we can work together. And I really feel like this is what probably saved her.
Yeah, I agree. That was a great the fact that she was just so quick to say that and use that to defend herself, and to kind of throw suspicion on Peter was super smart. And you like you said at the beginning of when we started talking about the roundtable, like Phaedra, even though she didn't really have any fear that she was being going to be targeted, she does seem to be quick on her ability to defend herself. And if anything, that also kind of makes me a little sad because it does seem like Phaedra could be more of a gamer, because it does seem, if you're so good at defending yourself, I like to think that you're also good at manipulating and, like, you know, having some agency moving forward in the game. So I do wish that she would bring this defensive energy to the into the turret and into these conversations and trying to push for names a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great to see at least this moment from Phaedra as well.
I totally agree with you. I want to see more from Phaedra in the turret moving forward and like taking more of a front facing like alpha role. I think she
Mhm.
really took a backseat to first with Dan, of course, and then I think also because Parv was under so much heat, she really let Parv lead the way. But I think like Dan was really driving a lot of the decisions at the beginning, and she just took because she's never played a game like this. But I think as she obviously gets her feet wet and continues on, that was a gamer move that she pulled there.
Yeah.
Like, that shows me that she's a gamer. She can do it. So I really wanna see more of that from her because I loved this. Like,
Mhm.
this was perfect. Peter made such a mistake in that moment, and I feel
Yeah.
like Phaedra in the last episode was so smart to be like, "I'm not getting caught in Peter's trap. I'm outta here." And not only did she say this could be a trap, but then she used it against him. I thought
Mm,
this was such a good move from her. I loved it. I loved it.
I agree. Give her 10,
Um,
giving you your
yeah.
10s, Phaedra, for that
Yep,
move.
10s for Phaedra. Peter was like, "I was 100% on her, and I was being cocky to try and corner her and mess with her a little bit." And, like, everybody's kinda like, "What?" Like, John makes a face here.
Yeah.
Everybody's kinda like, you know, he's like, "I was joking. I wasn't really gonna work with her." And everyone's like, "Okay." Kate was like, "So maybe it's a joke, but now all of a sudden you were joking, but now you're still not going for her, so something
Yeah.
must be going on. Like, obviously it wasn't that much of a joke." And he's like, "Why are you defending Phaedra so much?" And she's like, "I'm not. I think it's actually weird." Well, he, like, cut her off, and she's like, "Can I finish? Let me finish talking." Um,
Mhm.
and she's like, "I just think it's weird that you're off Parv and you're jumping onto Phaedra so quickly."
Mhm.
Um, and Kate also really ate up Dan here, and I loved it. I'm sorry. I know everybody loves Dan, and I think Dan is such a great Big Brother player, but she was like, "This whole thing hinges on Dan being such a mastermind and leaving everybody a clue,
That
but
was
Dan's
funny.
just sucks at the game, and that's why he's not here anymore." And I'm like, "Thank you for saying it. He sucked at this game, and that's why he's not here anymore. Thank
Exactly.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you, Kate, for speaking the truth."
I agree. That was really funny to hear Kate say that. Yeah, Kate did a really good job in this roundtable. And the only other thing now, actually, as we're talking about the roundtable, the other thing that came to my mind is, you know, it kind of makes me a little happy to see Peter kind of stumble finally, because I
Oh,
think
me
he's
too.
handling this terribly. I think
Terribly.
him allowing, like, Trishelle to convince him to go for Phaedra now is just a bad move on his part. He could have literally just not said nothing, gone for Parv, and then gone for Phaedra next week, and he would have been in a much better position. And now I actually think I think Peter is at a very high risk of being sent home next week. So I'm glad that Peter did stumble here.
I think you're right, and I hope that Peter is at
Please.
risk of going home next week, and we still haven't seen that moment in the trailer of Phaedra saying, like, "This is not The Bachelor, and I don't need to kiss your ass for a
Yeah.
rose." Obviously, that's coming at some point, maybe next week, I don't know, or this week, I guess now on Thursday. But yes, I think Peter is gonna start feeling the heat very soon, and I think this is just the start of it. Because 'cause you're right, I think Peter really fumbled across the board, like, he
Mhm.
could have said to Parv, I don't know, like, yeah, I still think you're a traitor, but, like, I actually have some evidence against Phaedra, so I feel like if you wanna whatever, but instead he's like, "I don't think you're maybe you are a faithful." And
Yeah.
he's just, like, overplaying so much and is so cocky that I do feel like it's just gonna come back and bite him a little
Mhm.
bit, and this is the perfect moment for that,
Mhm.
so and same with Trishelle. she rounded up the troops for this, and she maybe isn't wrong because they didn't vote out Phaedra, but like Parv is a traitor, so are they gonna go for Phaedra again next time? I don't really know. But yeah, I loved this moment of Peter just stumbling and making a fool of himself.
Yes.
At the hands of Phaedra and Kate, my two girls. So Sandra tells us she still believes in her confessional that Parvati is the traitor, and she's glad she's getting heat finally at the round table. CT is kind of in between. He's like, I'm yes, Phaedra lit my torch and we have a very good relationship, but I'm looking for traitors, not love. And I'm like, no, but look for love too, a little bit. Just a little bit of love, a little bit. A little bit. Yeah. Yeah. You have to be your castle daddy for a little longer. So we get to the votes. MJ votes for Parv because it's been in her direction for so long. Phaedra, of course, votes for Parv. I will say I am glad that we didn't see Parv and Phaedra like fully going against each other.
Yes.
I'm happy that they both were just like defending themselves instead of going for each other. That I was glad to see that. Sandra, of course, votes for Parv because John had valid points. Peter votes for Phaedra, of course. Like you said, smug. John voted for Parv with a very heavy heart, which is why I'm like, okay, John is part of the Peter Pals, but he's not voting with them. Like he votes the way that he wants to vote. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that from John. Parv, of course, votes for Phaedra. Kevin votes for Phaedra, and Phaedra's like my twitchy eyes, and she's like twitching at him when she's voting, which I thought was so funny. Trelle votes for Phaedra. Sheree, of course, votes for Parv because she says we need to be consistent. I agree with you, Sheree. Know if that was your idea or not, or if you just go same, but I appreciate that you said it. And CT votes for Parv and says that he can't banish someone who lit my torch based on the word of a known liar. Just doesn't sit well with him in his heart. So he kept Phaedra safe. And Kate voted for Parv. So Parv has the vote. She's out of here.
Oh, poor Parv.
And poor you, because she was the last one in your draft, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, this is the end of my draft. I cannot win this draft anymore, which sucks.
Yeah, I know. It is. I know. Well, neither can the audience because Bergie also went home. So,
True.
Yeah.
If somehow Phaedra can still win this show, like it'll be worth me losing this draft.
Yeah. I mean, at least she'll take home some money. Yeah. My draft appreciates it. But you had a good draft. I mean, I really liked your draft. None of us saw this coming.
I agree. I really thought it was going to be stronger than it turned out to be.
You and Mark were my winner pick. Yeah, that's true. You did make it to episode 8, and you and Mark are my winner picks. So, Mark still has a shot. Parv reveals she's a traitor. She says that she spent the last 2 years of her life practicing truth-telling and emotional authenticity and aligning herself with truth and integrity. And when she came out here, she actually really wanted to play a faithful game, but she's a traitor. And everyone's like, oh, Phaedra gets emotional, and Sandra's hugging her, and she's like, it's okay, be strong, which I love that these two are friends. I think it's so cute.
It's a cute little alliance.
Yeah. Trelle says she's burning her notebook. Sandra says she's going to be the queen of this castle now that Parv is gone, and she's ready to win the Traitors, which I actually think Sandra has a very good chance to win this game. I think we have a very high chance of the Faithfuls seeing a win here. What do you think? Do you think we're seeing a traitor win or a faithful win this season?
I don't see it for the Traitors, unfortunately. I do think the faithful are going to win. We'll see. It's just I want Sandra to win. And I hopefully this is setting up the Sandra edit that Sandra wins. And if Phaedra doesn't win, I'll be happy with a Sandra.
Yes, I agree. As long as none of the Peter Pals are in that group. If it's like Phaedra and CT and Sheree at the end, I'll be happy. Let them split the money. Yeah, let them split the money. Phaedra's nerves are shot. She has to do this alone now. She's nervous. She hasn't had to do this alone. This is scary to her, but she's happy. She has people who are in her corner and who have her back because it keeps her in a place of power. So obviously, Phaedra's going to have to recruit here. Before we get to what actually happens, did you have any thoughts about this before we find out what the end game was going to be here at this episode?
I think, two things. First, but even before we got to the turret, I just wanted to talk about how we're finally starting to see some Peter distrust. Like,
oh yes,
Kevin and MJ talk, and Kevin is telling MJ like, hey, like Peter was a little sus. It was a really weird
Yeah.
move from him. So hopefully we're seeing some of the Peter pals. Like hopefully John will be. I think John and Kevin will be the two Peter pals who can potentially be swayed to vote out Peter after this week. And then we
Yeah,
also see
Kevin
Peter.
literally says he does not trust Peter anymore. He said, something doesn't sit right. I do not trust Peter at this point anymore.
And I fully agree. Like if you're playing this game, the way Peter's been playing is that move was very shady. So even though we as viewers know that Peter is not a traitor, like if I like, for example, the way that I like to sometimes think about the show is if I were watching The Mole, like the Netflix Mole,
Yeah.
where we didn't know who the mole was. If I didn't know that Peter wasn't a traitor, I would be very suspicious of Peter as a viewer.
Oh, me too.
So I can't blame Kevin for wanting to target Peter after this. I fully agree. I would want to get Peter out also. So I thought that was a good coming from Kevin was perceptive, even if he is technically wrong, but it's still, I think, the right way to play the game, if that makes sense.
Yes, I totally agree. We also see Sandra and Phaedra, and Sandra's like, Peter's fucked.
Oh yeah.
Like they were like, he's doing the shadiest stuff out of anybody in the house. And we get a really good conversation between Kate and Peter.
Yes.
And he's like, come on, let's go talk. And she's like, he's annoying to me. But I think he's met his match with Kate a little bit because she cannot be swayed. Parv, I don't think could be swayed either, but she had to play into it a little bit. But Kate just doesn't give a fuck. So she's like, yeah, no. He's like, I know you don't believe me. And she's like, I still don't believe you. Like she doesn't have any fear to say it to Peter,
Exactly.
which I love. But she says to us, like, you're a traitor to the faithfuls. Whether you're a traitor or not, you're a traitor to the faithfuls because you lied to everybody and you made up this thing. Because he's pretty much just like, I didn't believe that Parv was a faithful. Like, we just wanted to get Phaedra out. And she's like, okay, but like, whatever you're doing, like, doesn't make sense, whatever.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm not saying, God.
I was gonna say, like, you technically just defended a traitor. Like that makes you very tough, whether you are or aren't a traitor. The fact that you were so gung-ho about someone and then you flip and then they turn out to be a traitor just is not a good look.
Yeah, like you're defending a known traitor just to like further yourself, which like means you just are not trustworthy either way. And she says, you just lied to a full group. He says, do you believe anything I was saying? She says, I still don't. And she says, I'm not saying Phaedra's not a traitor. I'm saying you were doing shady shit. So I'm like, that's really all you needed to say. That's all you needed to say. My question to you, now that it seems like Kevin and John, maybe John, we don't get as much from John as we do from Kevin, don't trust Peter. Do you think they're going to spill the beans about Peter being recruited?
Ooh.
Because I was waiting for him to say it to MJ.
That would be good TV.
And I feel like they showed us that conversation for a reason. Like, that's obviously going to come back to bite Peter, right? It's going to have to.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't even think about that. And I hope that they do. Again, I think that would be amazing gameplay from Kevin and John to bring up that Peter conversation and put a target on Peter's back. I think that would be great. That would be a great plan. And I hope we do see it. I feel like John seems to be someone who is doing pretty good at this game and seems pretty perceptive. And if he really believes something, he's not going to allow himself to be swayed. So hopefully that's enough for at least John to speak up. But we also seen Kevin be like, Kevin honestly has played this game like, I don't give a, like, I'm going to say whatever I say. So he might just say it too. So honestly, if anyone would say it, it would be Kevin and John. So
I don't think Trichelle's going to spill and Bergie's murdered, so he can't. But I wouldn't be surprised because Peter was like, I want to keep this in my back pocket to use against Parv. And obviously Parv's gone now. But someone's going to have to say, right? Like, and Laura in the chat said, how would that put a target on Peter's back? He would be hard cleared as a faithful. Not necessarily, because we don't know if he's telling the truth or if he's not. He could just be saying, like, I got recruited, excuse me, and I'm only telling my close people because I know they'll think that I'm still a faithful. That's why I don't want everybody to hear it, because maybe they don't believe me. Like, maybe he feels like he can manipulate those people into thinking that he's a faithful and not everybody else. That's why he kept it to a small group. So I think either way, that makes Peter look very shady. And I think he's doing enough to look shady where it could be the nail in Peter's coffin, perhaps. So we'll see.
Yeah, like you said, Katie, if he would have said that when it originally happened, then they couldn't use it against him. But
if you raised your hand in the room and said, they tried to recruit me, obviously, I said no, I'm a faithful to the end, I want to win this game the right way, whatever. He didn't do that. He just sat there didn't
Mhm.
say anything, which is really shady.
Yeah. And he already has the shadiness from this whole Parvati thing, so it's just like adding fuel to the fire, you know?
Right, right, exactly. Anything else before we head to the turret and what
Um,
happens next?
no, we'll see. We can get into that part too because
Let's get
I
to
was
it.
shocked at what happened.
Me too. Me too. I was not expecting this. Charade, I keep doing that. Phaedra tells us, "I belong in the castle, honey. I am a queen." And she says that she deserves the Miss Congeniality Award for the Traitors, which is true. I think Phaedra is playing a top-notch social game in this season, and I think that is really contributing to how well she's doing so far and how she keeps getting people to have her back. Um, so she says, "Someone has to die, and I have to make the decision alone." But then in comes Alan, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Well, you have the opportunity to recruit, and you will recruit a faithful to join you and meet them face to face in the dungeon. And if they say no, then they die. They have to join you or die. Obviously, because then they'll know who she is because they're meeting face to
Yeah.
face. Um, who were you thinking she was gonna pick here? Because I had thoughts, and the person she picked is not who I thought she was gonna pick.
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't really know who she would pick. If I had to choose, I thought she would pick someone more like someone she gets along with, like a CT.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna pick CT for
Um,
sure.
but when she said who she said, I was like, uh-huh. Like, okay, like I don't know. So who do you think? I think CT would be my answer. That's who I would say I would have seen her pick.
I thought she would have picked CT for sure, which I'm actually very glad she didn't because I think he would have big T'd her out the door, and I would have been
True.
that would have been the end for me with CT. He got one, and Big T was the one. I think I also thought she would have chosen Sandra because everybody clearly thinks
True.
Sandra's a
Sandra
faithful
would have been
and
good.
Sandra's a gamer, and it seems like she likes to work with the gamers a little bit and like use their expertise to help guide her. So I also thought Sandra I actually think Sandra would have been the best pick out of everybody,
Yeah. Now
probably.
that you mentioned, I think
Um,
Sandra. Yeah.
Sandra would have won the game as a traitor.
Mhm.
Like, there's no question in my mind that Sandra would have made it to the end, especially because I think how many episodes are there? 10
Yeah,
total?
that's the thing. We have so many people. I was gonna bring this up at the end, but we have so many people left, and there's only two
So
episodes.
many people, right? There are only 10, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
like
mean,
yeah.
I don't know if they confirmed that, but the last season only had 10.
Yeah, usually every season has 10 episodes for them, and UK had 10. I mean, maybe it's a long one for the last one, but I just feel like we have so much to go that I'm shocked there's only 2
Mhm.
episodes left. Um but she immediately chooses Kate.
Like no hesitation. That also would like threw me off. I was like, whoa, she didn't even think. She just said, "Hey,
I didn't even think we were gonna get her choice in this episode, and then she was
yeah."
just like, "Kate," and I was like, "I'm so I'm sorry? I'm sorry?"
Literally taken aback. I literally was like, "Huh."
Yeah, I was shocked. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not mad.
I wanted to see Kate play as a traitor last season.
You did.
I was hoping that if they brought her in this season, we would have seen her play as a traitor just to see her do something different. So I'm excited to watch Kate as a traitor. I think she'll be very exciting. And like we said earlier, I think she's playing this game much more strategically than the first time. So and she's seemingly good at it so far. People trust her. They're looking for her to her for advice on like how the game is working. So it could be good. Um but it's a weird choice.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, Kate feels like very much a wild card. I genuinely don't know what to expect from Kate as a trader. Like, I feel like she's like I said earlier. I think she's been playing a good game this season, and I hope
Mhm.
that her becoming a trader won't change how she plays the game. Because I think Kate is a person who, if she changes even a little bit, it's a wrap. They're gonna get
I
her
think
out. Like,
so
she
too.
cannot change anything about her game. She has to continue being like, which unfortunately, I feel like a lot of traders don't want to play that like loud game. And Kate has been loud. She doesn't mind talking. She doesn't mind saying anything. So she has to continue that. And I think as a trader, it's hard to want to play that way. So
Yeah.
she, and if she doesn't, she's going to be a target right away. So I think Kate's going to be a wild card. Low key, very on the lowest of keys. I wouldn't be shocked if Kate said, "I don't want to play this game anymore."
No. Oh, I would be so upset if
I
she did
hope she
that.
doesn't do that. But if Kate would be the only person I could imagine being recruited or dying and being like, just take me out. But I hope she
I
doesn't. I don't think she
I
will.
could see it. I don't think she will, but I could. You're right. I think if anybody would say that and just say like, "Fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore," it would be
Exactly.
Kate. But she did say earlier when she came in, she's like, I wanted to play as a traitor. I wanted the robe." I think Kate. I'm hoping that Kate doesn't change anything because
Mhm.
just knowing Kate from watching her for so long on Below Deck and seeing her last season just be up against the wall the whole time and not, she just doesn't give a shit and
Yeah.
she'll say whatever. And I just hope that she continues to do, like, I don't feel like she gets rattled easily. So I'm hoping that she, Phaedra even said like she's direct and she can say and do things that I can't, which I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I mean, like, that's good reasoning.
Yeah.
I get nervous about 2 Bravo people being traitors because, I
Mhm.
root for the Bravo girls, but, I think this is interesting. It's a total wild card. I have no idea what to expect, but I'm
Mhm.
excited to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, I'm excited to see because if I'm being honest, as we're wrapping up this episode, like these past two episodes were kind of just taking me a little bit out of the season. I feel like I was on such a high the first 6 episodes. I was like, this is such a great season. I'm loving everything about it. And then we got to episode 7, which completely stalled it all. And it got
Yeah.
me like a little like, oh God, I guess I have to finish the show. Episode 8 was a little better than 7, but not knowing what to expect with Kate does make me optimistic for these last few episodes. Regardless of, do I think the Traitors are going to win? No. I am still interested to see how Kate, hopefully she says yes, plays as a traitor. And I do think that's going to carry me through the rest of the season because, like I said, it was, these last 2 episodes did not make me very optimistic for like the final few episodes of the season. So,
Yeah, I think the whole Peter Pals situation took a lot of
mhm,
steam out of the season for me. Like, I think it was fun, like we said, for the one episode where he set that trap, but then it just became like this very annoying force over the whole season, and it's just annoying, and I'm tired of them. I'm not having
mhm,
fun watching Peter or
yeah,
Trishelle. So I'm hoping at least like one of them goes in the next episode. Did they say that they were going to be able to murder?
I don't know actually.
I don't know either. I don't think they specified that, like, if Kate
Mhm,
got recruited, that they would then also murder, and I don't remember if they did that in the UK when they had to give the ultimatum to
mhm,
somebody, if they
yeah,
murdered the same night.
I'm not
So I
sure.
guess we'll see, but, yeah, I
Mhm,
think it would be good if they did get to murder someone, because then I think it would just be like, "Oh, well, obviously someone got recruited," and whatever, which I just don't wanna deal with that either. Like, we
mhm.
gotta start losing some people, I think.
And I mean, with 2 episodes left, assuming this is a 10 episode season, I think they have to kill someone here
Yeah, they
because I
have
think
to.
we are like 10 people left in the game, and how we're gonna get rid of all these people, you
I
know?
know, the people have to start dropping. We have
Yeah.
a lot of people left.
Mhm.
Um,
I will say one last thing, as because you mentioned the whole, the whole Peter Pals have kind of been like the center of the show now, and I agree that's what I don't like about it. And at the end of the day, with all of these reality TV shows, even if my faves are in power, I do like a back and forth, and that's
yes.
unfortunately what we're not getting this season with the Peter Pals. Like they've kind of just been running things for the past few episodes. That's why like episode 7, I was so excited for with Sandra's amazing plan of let's get Peter out. That would have been amazing. We would have gotten Peter out, boom. Then maybe episode 8, we would have gotten Parvati out, and that would have continued the momentum for me. But just
Yeah.
seeing one team steamroll is just not good TV for me, and it's not entertaining. So that's kind of why I'm like also over the Peter Pals. So
I agree, and I also feel like in most of the US is just so different from all the other traders because of the fact that they are actual gamers playing the game. So, like, you don't see, like, I guess you see alliances in a sense of, like, you see people who are close with each other. Like, in Canada, we saw, like, Gurleen and Leroy play with each other, but, like, it's not as different. I mean, it's not the same, it's different. It's not like a named thing of where they're closing doors behind people. Like, they're strategizing, but it's just not like a steamroll like that, and
mhm.
I always like when I'm watching the Traitors and I see there be conflict between the Traitors, which we, like, kinda had with Dan, but it didn't really play out the same way where it's like we said earlier, he just, like, threw a name out and then he didn't actually play the game to try and get her out. He just, like, said it at the table,
Oh,
and, like, Parv and Phaedra didn't really, like, go at it too much. So it's just, like, usually by this point, there's some turmoil within the traders as well,
mhm.
where it's exciting and we're, like, rooting for one trader over the other, plus we're like, "Who's gonna win?" It just feels
Yeah,
like it's been a little stale and just, like, focused on Peter versus, like, non-Peter, and
yeah,
I'm getting a little bored. I agree with you.
yep.
But we're almost to the end, and I think this could really switch things up. I think it could be really
Mhm.
fun to watch Kate as a traitor, so I'm very excited to see what happens next. But I'm not on the edge of my seat like I am every other week being like, "When is Traitors coming on? I can't wait till Thursday." Like, I'm like,
Exactly.
"Oh, right, it's Thursday, Traitors is on, I forgot."
Yes, that's what it is. Like the
Mhm.
first 6 weeks, I was just on the edge. Like, what's next? I like in the first 6 episodes, I was like, I wish they released everything or released more episodes at once. And now it's
Yeah.
like, okay, let me go watch the next Traders episode. But
Yes.
the Kate recruitment does amp it a little bit more excitement. Just to, regardless of whatever happens with Kate, even if she lasts one episode as a traitor, I hopefully will enjoy that one episode.
Yes, I agree, I agree. Um, in other Traitors news before we end, I know a lot of people have been talking about Larsa and Marcus,
Yes.
breaking up, and I regret more than anything not tweeting out my thoughts at the time because I was like, "This feels fake," and they're, like, back together. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
I saw
"Okay, they
that.
broke up for a day and now they're back together, so publicity? I don't know," but I'm sure we'll see some of that play out at the reunion because they already filmed
That's
the Real
true.
Housewives of Miami reunion before this breakup happened. So I think the Traitors are going to be the first time we really see it addressed, and Andy Cohen will address it if I know Andy Cohen. So I'm excited to see that.
I would love to see when Larson they're back in the room, and we'll see what happens with that.
I agree. Laura also says, just back to Kate for a second, that it's hard since Kate hasn't been part of the show, but kind of more of an NPC. And I kind of agree. Like Kate is a little bit of an NPC where she's just like off in the corner making comments, but she's not like she's more actively playing this time, but I think this is going to force her into like really
Mhm.
making decisions. So hopefully it's exciting.
Yeah, I will say if somehow Kate wins, I do think I will put an asterisk near her win because she came in halfway through.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say which Big Brother player I think should also have an asterisk, which we saw recently win, but there's some things that put asterisks in people's names and twists, and I think this would be a twist that would put an asterisk near Kate's name.
Yes, I agree. I think the most recent Big Brother player has an asterisk because he
Yes.
was unanimously voted out and then ended up winning the game. So I agree. I would also put an asterisk against Kate's name if she came in halfway through and
Yeah.
very clearly was a faithful and then like was a traitor for 2 episodes and won. Like that's a
Exactly.
little. I would also feel the same about Ari if he won last season, if he was
Yeah.
a traitor for 2 episodes and
Mhm.
won and had the shield every single time and couldn't get
Mhm.
murdered. Like it's just a little, yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Um, any final thoughts over these last 2 episodes or what we hope to see moving forward?
Take out Peter and Trishelle, and then anyone can win.
Please, please, please. I wouldn't even be as mad if Kevin won. I mean,
Me
I would
neither.
be like, "Really?" But, like, I
Well,
can't. I can't have Peter or Trishelle splitting this money. I can't.
especially a John win. I would not be mad at a John
No,
win.
I wouldn't be mad at a John win at
John would
all.
be like, honestly, from all of Peter pals, John would be the only one who I want to see win.
Yes, me too. Me too. Give me a
So
Sandra win, give me a John win, give me a CT win. I can't have a Trishelle win.
no,
I can't
please,
do it.
no,
No.
no Trishelle, no Peter. Just take them out and then end the show if you want.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Agreed. Well, Javier, we've been at it for 2 hours, which isn't, all things considered, that bad. We talked about
Yeah,
2
for 2 hours.
episodes.
Exactly.
We purposely didn't have a guest this week because we knew we were gonna go long. So,
Yes.
where can everyone find you? What are you up to? I know we have a podcast coming this week.
Yes. So everyone, you can find me on Twitter at _ the Starboy, where I tweet all of my thoughts on all my shows. You can get more of my traders thoughts there, more of my any show, the challenge. But also you can find me on on the podcast Love is Blurry here on Silent Podcast. We're coming back tomorrow. We're going to be covering the first 6 episodes, which is a lot, by the way. So we're going to get through that.
6
But
episodes. Oh,
yeah,
they're out?
yeah, they dropped 6 episodes last week.
Oh, geez. I haven't watched any yet, but I'm gonna
So
catch up.
join Isaiah. I convinced him to come back. He always says he's not coming back, but he's always gonna come back. Like
He
Isaiah
can't
knows
stay
he
away.
enjoys talking about this mess. So yeah, Love is Blurred will be back tomorrow. So catch me there as well. And of course, every week here, covering the Traitors. What about you, Katie?
I'm excited to listen to Love is Blurry once I watch these episodes because I feel like you and Isaiah always have such a good time talking. Like you guys always just make me laugh. Isaiah is such a hater on this show that I just can't believe he's still talking about it, but that's why it's fun to listen to him.
That's why it's so entertaining.
Yes, it's very entertaining. You guys do a great job. This is it for me. You can follow me on Twitter at RealSlimKatie. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/RealSlimKatie. And you can catch me here with Javier for another at least 2 weeks plus the reunion whenever that comes, talking Traitors. So we'll have more guests for you coming up over the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
So stay tuned for that. We've been having a lot of fun with all of our friends coming on. And you can catch us here at Silent Podcasts, anywhere you listen to your podcast, if you search Silent Podcasts, we do have a Silent Traitors feed, but it's like not really showing up on all the podcast apps. So I have to still do some troubleshooting to figure out why, even though we only have 2 episodes left. But it's out there and it has all of our Traitors coverage. So search it. It should at least show up at some point soon, if you only want Traitors coverage. So check that out. And follow us on Silent_Podcast on Twitter to keep up with what we're up to. I know Gia just did some really great coverage this week as well. So just make sure you check out and follow all of our stuff and keep up with what we're doing, because we have a lot of really great content creators doing a lot of really great content with opinions that you don't really hear elsewhere. So check us out and support, like us, rate us, subscribe, all that stuff. It's free to do so and it helps us out. So thank you, everybody. And we will be back next Monday to talk about episode 9 of The Traitors, and hopefully Kate's first episode as a traitor, if she doesn't say just kill me, which she might. So who knows?
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.